Madeira Beach Board of Commissioners workshop meeting. The time is now 2:02. City Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Vice Mayor Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Lister,
Here.
Commissioner Poe,
Here.
Commissioner Shantz,
Here.
Mayor Palladino.
For the record, Madam Clerk, the mayor called about an hour ago and he fell quite ill, and so he's not going to make it in today.
Okay, the first item on the agenda this evening, or this afternoon, is discussion of the FDOT beautification grants with Mr. Tort.
Vice Mayor, if I can introduce, Steve Tart's here from CPWG. The city's done what they can in regards to obtaining as many grants as possible as we continue to do a plethora of projects, and Steve really stepped up to the plate lately when we had a very, very short deadline to land a grant, and I'll let him tell the story, but he definitely deserves a pat on the back for landing this. But at the end of the day, we've been able to secure a significant amount of money to do with the islands on Gulf Boulevard, which the citizens and people have been asking us for: bigger palm trees, more greenery, more aesthetically pleasing type things like that. So with that, I'll give the floor to Steve Tart.
Thank you. Yeah, the story's funny. I like getting calls at 3:45 on a Friday and, hey, this is due Tuesday, can you help? But we were able to, so it was all good. Basically, I just want to give you guys a background on the two grants that you currently have. One that you definitely are getting and one that you've applied for. The first grant is the typical grant where you guys have gotten like $10,000 a year for some landscape improvements along the FDOT roadways. So that's called the Highway Landscape Reimbursement Grant. And actually this year you're getting $50,000, and that's approved. I believe Shane has received a letter that you guys have been approved for that grant, and that is specifically this time to put palm trees in the new medians along Gulf Boulevard.
So can you tell us why it would jump from 10 to 50, Steve? Or is it
I
just
think
your
just because
persistence?
I think because they had more money this year.
Okay, fantastic,
So-
thank you. So next year? No.
No, I think next year you should try same thing.
There you
I
go.
mean,
Thank you, Steve.
They've been very generous lately at FDOT with landscape money. So
Fantastic.
I don't see that changing going forward for a while. The second grant is the Florida Highway Beautification Council grant. That is a statewide competition, so that's cities through all 7 districts for FDOT putting in grants. And what they have is they have $1 million a year of a pot of money that everybody can apply for. It's a 50-50 grant match. And so what we did here is we put in a grant application for $63,000. Your match will come out of the Big C beautification funds for Gulf Boulevard. So it's not really money out of your pocket, so to speak, but it's money out of the project budget for what we're doing along Gulf Boulevard, along with the underground and all the other improvements. They had $1.3 million in grant applications. They will do their ranking on November 11th. And then from there, I was talking to Will Moriarty from FDOT, District 7, and he said they'll either start at 1 and fund until they get to $1 million. He says sometimes what they'll do is they'll spread that funding across all the grants because it's only $300,000 beyond their budget that they have. And we'll find that out. We'll know the rankings right after the 11th. We'll know final right after the first of the year. So, but it looks pretty good. I would assume we'll get some funding, if not all of the funding.
When you say we'll know the rankings, you'll know the rankings?
We'll all know the rankings after the 11th.
Sweet.
Sometime I would guess by the 15th or 16th.
Fantastic.
So,
Okay, Mr. Tart, can you answer a question as to, I'm just curious what they're doing. Right in front of the, or right by the traffic light on 150th and Madeira Way, Madeira Way, 150th and Gulf Boulevard, excuse me. They planted grass, then they took all the grass out again.
right.
What's happening?
Well, I don't know for sure, but my speculation is that the amount of dirt that they put in, so the topsoil and some other things, probably were not done according to specifications, and that they're redoing that would be my guess. But I actually have one of my guys that's doing some of the CI work, finding that answer out, and we'll pass that back along.
I think that's been substantiated. I think there was a lack or a inadequate amount of topsoil down. Long story short, they put the sod down and the sod died. So they're lifting it up, and I think they're trying. I think it's resilient. I think it'll probably come back. And Dave was working with some people today. Since we are doing what we're doing with Gulf Boulevard, if we just say, hey, take it out, put in some shelf for the next 8 to 10 months while we get going on our project, because Gulf Boulevard is going to get torn up again. I don't think that they should spend a whole lot of time and resources and money on making sure that they grow grass just for us to go in there and have to at least rip up parts of it to put in electrical, put in irrigation, so on and so forth. So we'll make sure that it looks nice, but at the end of the day, it might not be sod. We're going to try to work with them, but if it comes back, it comes back.
When is this repaving coming for Gulf Boulevard? I see they're paving.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like they are, but it kind of looks like they're not.
Well, remember that, and
What are they doing now?
Steve and Dave can do a better job of this than I can, but, you know, they did their work on their islands, and then they were going to put just, I think, a ½ inch on top, right? Just to
Yeah, they just do an
basically
overlay course. for
make it
now.
look pretty, but be able to stripe the road as necessary so that it would be safe. That's just a cheap fix for the meantime. Then Steve's group comes in, figures out a way for us to bury our utility, and then Gulf Boulevard was going to be redone anyway. Steve becomes lap certified, and not only do we do the utility, but we supervise the entire construction project of Gulf Boulevard again. So Steve says in the first quarter of next year, remember the experiment of burying the utility under the sidewalk will happen probably in the February to March timeframe, and then we'll know from there whether or not we can proceed with the whole thing. So we're not that far away. We'll start doing this. The project will actually commence probably within the next 4 to 5 months.
Well, I was just wondering, I just thought, you know, we're talking about undergrounding on the boulevard. Why are they paving this thing
Well,
now?
they're going, there's going to be people critical of it because they don't understand, and that's not their fault. But the issue being, if you put in those islands and redo the crosswalks and then leave the paint markings the way it is, it's confusing and actually probably detrimental and hazardous. So they put a top on it, paint it the right way. It's a relatively cheap fix for them. The road looks attractive until we come on in and do what we got to do.
It's really a light coating of blacktop, right?
It's very
Yes,
small. It's a
it
½
is.
inch.
Yeah, basically a friction course, just like Shane said. It's more aesthetic
Yeah.
than operational.
That answers a little bit confused.
There you go. Very good.
I have one. Steve, is there anything we can do, you know, to get more grants? We're
No,
always looking for more
you guys
money.
get pretty regular letters,
Yeah.
and we do also, so as they come along, we'll chase them, but not anything beyond what you're doing now.
Fantastic. All right, thank you very much, Clark.
For the board's edification, you know, I'm only as good as the people I surround myself with the department heads. We've actually, these guys, these consultants, they contact us. They're out there looking for us, not to mention our own department heads and myself looking for it. So if there's something, Terry Lister sent me one the other day, and we actually probably will qualify for it. I sent it to Al Carrier, and he's taking a look at it right now. So, I mean, as you get them, send them to us, but it's possible that we've already got it in the hopper and looking at it, but we look at every single possible application.
Okay. The next item will be a discussion of the debt issued for the undergrounding project, and this is with our finance director, Vince.
Yeah, you want me to just jump right in?
Go for it, man.
Okay, so I'll try to keep this as high level as possible and not get too caught up into the weeds, but I do want to walk you through where we're at so that you know where we stand on the next agenda. I think it's November 12th. We'll be coming back to you with a resolution to award the debt issue related to the undergrounding for Gulf Boulevard. So back on August 27th, you all provided direction for me to move forward on keeping the same bond counsel we had in place, keeping the same financial advisor we had in place. And so that team, over the course of the past, I guess, a couple months now, has worked together in developing an RFP for a 5-year bank deal. The 5-year term is intended just to match the county's reimbursement schedule. So we obviously have it's a $3.3 million interlocal agreement pledge with Pinellas County that they have with all the beach communities to do this improvement work on Gulf Boulevard. The goal, as I've said all along, for this initial phase is for it to be completely budget neutral. So we're going to take that $3.3 million and only commit to $3.3 million in expenditures. So that means we have to back out the costs that we've incurred to date, which include utility undergrounding in front of Archibald Park, engineering costs related to undergrounding for both Archibald and the pending projects. So when we back those out, then we're left with what will become the par value for this debt. The security that we used was the county's pledged revenue, but because there is a highly unlikely probability that the county could potentially not fund that commitment, we also had to go back to our 2013 bond revenue and use that on a junior lien basis, just in case we would need to cover that with an extra security. So basically that just helps us from a credit standpoint. In terms of the schedule, I've had some conversations with Steve and his group. I have some potential concerns about the project. I didn't want to commit to a debt service schedule with certain construction estimates in mind, and we may find that there's some kind of delay, or who knows what happens when we actually hit the ground running with the project. So because my repayment source is only the reimbursements, I essentially only have available funds based on the costs that we've incurred. So it's kind of a roundabout way of saying that I didn't want to commit to debt service expenditures too early in the project, and so we've backloaded the principal payments on the deal so that in years 4 and 5, we're retiring more of the principal. And the idea there is just that, again, we're not going to commit to debt service expenditures that exceed the reimbursement revenue from the county. Now, on the flip side, I've also asked the banks to allow early prepayment, which means that essentially I have a ton of flexibility in retiring the debt no matter what happens with the project. If we find that we really start rolling and it's done in 2 years, then I can pay it off in 2 years. If it takes 5 years, well, then I haven't really committed too much in principle, so we have a lot of flexibility.
But you can't go beyond that 5 years.
No,
Right.
we're limited to 5 years.
Right.
Now, I got 4 responses. The banks that came back to us were BB&T, SunTrust, Hancock Bank, and Seaside National Bank. Seaside is a Florida bank. They're based in Orlando. They have 12 or 13, maybe 14 locations, and I'm recommending that we go with Seaside Bank. The interest rate is 1.43% fixed over 5 years. And so when you calculate all that and back into the par value, it means we would be issuing debt totaling just over $3 million. It would be $3,005,000. And I would be coming back to you at the November meeting to award that. That would leave us with $2.75 million for construction on the undergrounding project. Again, taking into account the fact that the goal here is to be budget neutral, so we back out the interest cost, we back out the engineering cost, and we only award what will leave us with a neutral budget impact of $2.75 million. So that's kind of where we stand, and we'll move forward to the resolution in November if you guys are all okay with that. A couple other things I just wanted to mention while we're talking about some of these other projects today. Just a couple years ago, the city had 0 debt. We're currently working on our second issue. There's at least a second phase of this utility undergrounding project floating around that we've talked about. There's the DOT LAP project that we've talked about that we need to come up with the funding first for. And there's stormwater projects floating around that, we're talking about potentially several other debt issues over the course of the next few years. So to protect ourselves and from a credit standpoint to be sure that we're doing what we need to do, I'm recommending that over the course of the next fiscal year, we start developing some fund balance policies and debt policies that have not been in place in the past, but that really should be, so that, it's okay to pursue this aggressive level of capital spending in a short time frame, but we need to be sure we're not overcommitting on any of that debt service. So that's kind of where I stand, and be happy to answer any questions on the specifics of the RFP. Otherwise, I'll be ready to recommend an award at the November agenda for Seaside Bank.
I always love your conservatism. Really, really nice. 1.43, is that what it was? 1.43?
1.43.
Yes.
Fantastic.
In fact, we even asked them to come up with some potentially creative options to help us save a little bit, and I'm going to use this bank as a second deposit account to save 25 basis points. So they initially offered 1.68%, which I think still was going to be a low rate, but then they said, well, if you consider us as a second deposit account, we can save you 25 basis points. So that gets us to 1.43. So I think it's going to work out really well.
The one concern that you all should consider here, and I think Vince hit a term, your capital spending is aggressive. I mean, we're doing a lot of projects. Again, we're not overcommitting, but whenever you guys get to the point where you're like, wow, we haven't had any debt, and now we're going to have our 3rd, 4th, maybe our 5th debt issuance, then it's tit for tat. We say, okay, what project don't we want to do? And we cannot do that, but these are all things that were in the queue that you wanted us to pursue, and so that's where we're at. no one likes to have debt, but when you can borrow money at a rate like that, especially when it's, at least right now, we're just fronting the money and getting it paid back. It's an easy way to get some pretty substantial projects done in your city. So, you know, when people say, geez, all you're doing is spending money, well, they need to know all the semantics involved with that. And so it's important to be educated and remember some of the things Vince just said, because it's not as it may appear or reported in the newspaper.
Is there any further discussion on it?
Now, we just have to trust the county that they pay.
Right.
You know, me and the county, we're so tight. Good.
So I don't think we need a consensus on that one, but if everybody's kind of giving us the heads up or the nod to proceed with that, then we'll have that ready to go for you in November.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the discussion of the Stormwater Road Project scheduled and the corresponding financing plan.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, if I can have the floor, I'm going to hand it off to Al Carrier. He's our engineer in this regard, and I asked him to put this document together because I think there was some confusion as to what roads we're doing, why are we doing them, where is it, how much does it cost, so on and so forth. So the document is included in your packet tonight. And there's some strategy behind the order of how we're going to do things, and I'll let Al explain that to you. But age was one of the reasons why we started with Normandy. But when you can qualify for the grants that we just did, you know, let's call it, for round numbers, a $1.3 million grant, you sort of have to factor in that when you're looking at your next project, especially from a financing standpoint. So then we went through the map, and you've got that in front of you as to, okay, where can we qualify for these dollars as long as these dollars are available? And I think it's important to utilize that because basically it's 50% funding. So we put Al into an exercise of that to say, okay, if we got it this time, where can we get it next time? And if we got it then, when can we go on from there? And so I think we have about 3 to 4 years of a financing plan, but after that, it gets a little dicey if we want to continue that. Now, there isn't, I don't know, a city on this coast that has replaced all their stormwater in every road in town in a period of 4 or 5 years. If you want to do that, we're going to have to get inventive and figure out a way to do that. But I'm certainly of the opinion that I think in a 10-year period, we could probably take a pretty good chunk of this and take care of that. So with that, I'll hand it off to Al, who, by the way, should take 99% of the credit of landing that huge grant for us. We all owe him a huge pat on the back. And Al, it's all yours.
Good afternoon. Al Carrier with Doolin Associates. In front of you, you should have a 11 by 17 map. Carol was nice enough to print out in color for you. And there's also a spreadsheet with a list of the projects. Both these items were in the stormwater utility update document that you guys all reviewed and approved a couple of months ago. Everything should flow. Everything should look the same. Mr. Crawford had asked me to go through the projects and kind of look at the demand and kind of summarize what he had just mentioned. And we did that. We went through some of your complaints that you had from citizens over the years. I actually drove every street and walked every street looking for indications of where the road's failing and why it's failing. And the nice thing is your city's in fair condition, fair to good condition. You have a few areas that need addressing, and that's where we kind of use, that's the mechanism we use to rank the projects. So the first project on your list that we started off with was Normandy Road out in Crystal Island. And if you look at that document, the spreadsheet, the far left-hand column has the areas which corresponds to the areas on the map. And then the second row right next to that is a little more descriptive of the specific area in that larger overall area. There's total construction cost that includes permitting costs, construction inspection, and engineering costs, budgetary numbers. And then the last column, obviously, is the what fiscal year we plan on doing those projects. I might add, too, a caveat that this is very fluid. We know what we want to do next year, but as things develop, we get projects. Dave will give me calls to go out and look at drainage projects. We just had one this past week on BOC where a guy's losing his backyard. We went out and investigated it, and it's a storm sewer pipe, very, very old. The subdivision was built back in the 40s. pipe separating, and it just happens to be taking dirt in, the guy's losing a portion of his backyard. So we can address that because we know we have this project coming in this fiscal year, and we're gonna address it at that point, and the neighbor, or the resident is happy with that. So for this fiscal year, we had allocated about $750,000 to fix Normandy Road. Crystal Island and portions of Crystal Island and Bogosiega Drive, Bogosiega Avenue, which is Area 2 on your map, was kind of teetering. They both had been ranked about the same. Area 2, Bogosiega, which is where we went after the cooperative dollars from SwiftMud, ranks pretty high, or ranks fairly well with SwiftMud, because when SwiftMud asks for grant dollars or wants to give out grant dollars, they have to have a mechanism to justify. So with Bogosiega, because it's such a large landmass, we're able to get a lot of pollutants out of the water, out of the stormwater, prior to a discharge in Bogosiega Bay. Well, they put a very high value on that. So Bogosiega was pretty easy because there's a lot of land mass, there's a lot of runoff being generated, and we can capture the pollutants prior to discharge. And that's why we got ranked fairly well, and we got the cooperative dollars for that. So in fiscal year 15, this year, we're looking at doing the Bogosiega area, that whole Area 2. We applied for the grant about a year ago. We applied for the grant a year ago, and we just got the $50 or 50% match grant. The reason why we picked Area 2, Bogosiega, again, as being ranked very high, it's a very old neighborhood. There's virtually no stormwater infrastructure out there. If you go out there and look over the years, they've repaved and repaved, and a lot of times the pavement is higher than people's driveways, it's higher than people's yards, and it takes a pretty significant rainstorm for the water to start flowing and get to the outfalls. And so what you have is a lot of puddling on private property. And the overall condition of the street is fairly bad. There's not curbs. So that's why that got ranked so high. We're currently in the preparation of construction plans for that. We're looking to put that on the street probably late spring for contractor bids. And you're probably looking at about a 1 year, maybe a little longer contract time with the contractor once he gets his boots on the ground and get that constructed. As part of the stormwater utility update, one of the mechanisms that we included, or actually Dave and Vince included, was to be able to put some money aside to do point repairs. So, for instance, out on Crystal Island, we're working with Dave right now. There's two areas that we're trying to do point repairs. One's on Crystal and Island. But that intersection is in fairly bad shape. One of the storm pipes is in bad shape, and one of the inlets is bad. It's not a significant amount of money, but it looks really bad. It needs to be fixed. Another area is on Lillian, the south end of Lillian. There's curbs that are failing. There's people that have water almost a foot deep in front of their house almost every day of the year. So we're looking to do some point repairs in those two areas. In addition, there's a couple areas on Johns Pass Ave that we want to address also. So for fiscal year 15, we're doing that Area 2, Bogosiega Drive, Bogosiega Avenue, with the cooperative dollars, and then Area 3, which would be the point repairs on Crystal Island and Lillian. In addition to this year, Mr. Crawford had asked us, our firm, to look at the flooding on 140th Avenue, and that would be in Area 3. Well, obviously, we don't have the capital to do all of Area 3, but since 140th is such a main thoroughfare for that entire subdivision and all of Area 1, we received a number of complaints. We're looking at fixing that. I think we have a possible solution that we'll probably bring forward to you probably within the next month. It's a pretty economical solution, and this first phase will take care of about 50 or 60% of that roadway segment. And we'll start looking at the other segment for you all. Going in the out years, fiscal year 16, based on the available budget that would have after completing fiscal year 15 projects, we're looking at fixing Rex Place. There's a number of storm inlets on Rex Place that actually drain to the condominiums, to the, let me get my direction here, actually drain to the northeast. And what actually happens is city infrastructure drains through private infrastructure. So we think that's a pretty high priority. There's failing pipes. We just did a point repair on Rex Place a couple months ago, so we want to address that entire roadway. Also, American Legion Drive, which is behind the new Marriott and behind the new Publix, there's no infrastructure out there. It's all curb and gutter, and it all sheet flows to the end of the roadway. The roads, portions of it are in pretty bad condition. Because it's such a heavily traveled road, and I think there's some significant things that we can do out there. We can capture some of the pollutants. And this year, about a month ago, we applied for SWIFMUD granting, for 50/50 granting, to do the work on American Legion Drive and Rex Place. Some of the other hot spots, I might add, back in Area 3, there's Parsley Drive and Marguerite. That's scheduled for 20 fiscal year 17. We're going to start taking a look and compile some of these smaller projects. Obviously, we can't do the entire large areas that you would see, but we can certainly do some spot fixes until we can get to it and get the cooperative funding dollars. Again, we tried to plan this out so that we get a high ranking with SWIFMUD, so we can keep getting those 50/50 matches. There's also some other dollars. FDEP comes out with called a 319H grant. Now, we applied for that grant for Crystal Island 2 years ago, and we were ranked very low. And the problem is, Bogosiega, the grant's geared towards impaired water bodies. Bogosiega Bay is an impaired water body by FDEP rule, but only for mercury. We would be competing, or we are competing, against other projects like that are in Upper Tampa Bay, where there's numerous contaminants. So when they do their projects, they want to fix the worst areas first, obviously. But we have continued, we'll continue to apply for that grant every year. We never know if we might get in the ranking. We are in the process of applying for it for Bogosiega. If that's the case, it could be a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split. So we see a savings there. That's about as far as I want to go. It's fiscal year 17. All the other projects that we have listed on here, I believe, are very, very good chances of getting SWIFMUD dollars, cooperative dollars, and we're going to continue just to chip away at it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
The one thing that I wanted to add for the commissioners, just so you understand the next 2 to 3 years, is we've got that $1.3 million grant, but you're going to see that Vince and I, and Vince and Al jump in here, we have to borrow the 2.6. So we spend the 2.6, then SWIFMUD refunds us 1.3. Now we have 1.3 for the next project. If the next project is that Area 7 now?
It was going to be Rex Place and American Legion Drive.
Right.
6 and 7.
Right. So then now we've got our 1.3, which may or may not pay for that, but then we apply for that grant. So it kind of somersaults, but to get the ball rolling, there are going to be critics that say, hey, wait a minute, I thought you were going to get half this paid for. Why are you borrowing 2.6? Well, you have to, just like the last topic, you got to borrow the whole shebang and then get half of it paid back.
It seems we always go to SWIFMUD for our matching funds. Is there a way to go straight to Tallahassee to go after matching funds, or no? I mean, do we always have to go through SWIFMUD? Is that my question?
Typically SWIFMUD or DEP.
Okay.
FDEP. And again, I'll let you all know when it's time for you to start making phone calls to SWIFMUD, probably early spring. You guys did a great job of it last year. You really got their attention. A couple of the board members had given us a call. We had seen them out and about, and they had said, Madera, I guess they're getting ready to be put on the map again here. So they're happy to help, and they like giving money back because typically they see the same cities over and over and over again that keep getting this money. So when, Madera Beach and a couple of smaller communities can apply for it, they like giving it back to everybody. So that really helps. So I'll let you all know when it's time for you all to make your contacts again. All set?
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the discussion on potential modifications to Fantasy Planet Building as proposed by current tenant.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Our tenant is in the audience today, and he had, I think unofficially proposed to us some schematic designs or some renderings of what he'd possibly like to do to modify the building in an effort to have a serving window to, I would imagine, serve some sort of lunch sandwiches, maybe ice cream, that type of typical John's Pass food down there. So with that, I'd like to invite the tenant up to the podium. He can kind of walk us through this. There's a couple of things that you need to know, and it was included in the memo. One is that per the lease, any modifications that are done to the building are done at the tenant's expense. I think he's totally aware of that. B, I think the city needs to say we want to approve the design and be involved in the approval process as that goes along, which I would imagine the tenant won't have any problem with. But as long as it's structured and the city has some oversight over it, if you believe that this is a good capital improvement for that facility down there, staff's recommendation would be to approve. If you don't see that as a good one, then obviously staff's recommendation would be for denial. So with that, the floor is yours, sir.
Like explain what we're gonna do there?
Exactly.
Okay, we're gonna take like 10% out of the store, build a wall inside, separate it, open exit door that we have already, and make there like ice cream and coffee shop, that kind of business, with a little bit chairs and tables outside. You guys have a drawing?
Yes.
The interior wall, top to bottom, there's no openings between the, gonna be the souvenir shop and the
No,
ice cream
no,
shop?
no, no, it's gonna be through
No
outside.
egress through that wall?
What's that? No, there's no interest to that wall.
Okay, okay,
It'll be
inside, so it's
complete
all
wall.
from the outside that the ice
Yeah.
cream shop and the sandwich shops will be
More through outside the store, yeah.
accessed? Okay, all right. Are we changing the double doors on the side of the building?
We
Are
don't do
changing
any
that-
changing.
Okay.
That's perfect. There's two
Yes.
double doors on the front. We're gonna use one for the coffee shop and
Right.
one for the souvenir store.
Okay. Electrically, do you know, have you got any quotes on the electric, if it's gonna be enough to do everything, or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
so,
We don't
I
use
mean,
almost.
I know it's all your
anything.
cost, it's not costing us anything.
We have three-phase there, so
Yeah.
we're good. Yeah.
Okay,
The cost of what? Of doing,
the electric, just to make sure that you do have enough to do all three buildings, do all three businesses. It should be enough. Anything upstairs, are you doing anything upstairs?
no, upstairs we have like a little stock room and office, but
Okay.
nothing like retail business, no, not at all.
Have you had any issues, I know you've been there a long time, have you had any issues with the roof, any leaks, any?
There is a couple
Anything going
little
on?
leaks when like raining straight all day.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one here by the counter and one on the back wall.
Now, is that our
Little leaks.
responsibility to maintain that?
Roof, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it is. I just did 4 air conditions,
You just put in 4 new air conditioners?
4 units.
All right, fantastic, that's good. You know, I was trying to put a couple of bathrooms in there, but I like that we're utilizing that space. I love that. That's
All right.
nice. I'm really okay. I'm not sure if, you know, and this is your business. We have ice cream, you know, I understand, but it's good.
Competition is always good.
Competition is good, yeah. If you got
Competition
one
is
good
good.
one, you can have 2 good ones.
Brings more people.
Now, is this going to be strictly like from the inside, and people come up to a window and they stay outside, or do they
No,
actually
they
come
can
into
walk
the
in- They
store?
walk inside, yeah, they walk inside. The refrigerator will be inside, and a couple tables probably we're gonna have room to put inside.
But you can access it from outside. There'll be like a serving window that you can walk up to, or not?
No.
No,
walk
no,
in-
you have to
into
go,
the
you have
store.
to go
inside.
inside the,
Okay.
Other than that, we have to take that big window
uh-huh.
and
You
do
don't.
the other
Alright.
things, but we don't have to do that. Just perfect with the access door and walk in and out.
So what about Triangle Park? What are you thinking?
Excuse me?
What about Triangle Park? What are you thinking about doing to that? Anything outside seating?
Yeah, there is like it shows in the picture. There's like 5 or 6 tables outside on the side and a little bit on the front.
So, are we gonna let them do that?
You'd have to give them permission to do that.
Uh-huh, okay.
Oh, he needs to have some seats. That's what that little area I would say would be for. Not only will Moshe's people sit down there, the people from all along the street and everywhere.
Exactly, I think that's my only comment. I mean, as long as it's open, just like we did at the other end of John's Pass, or the north side.
Yeah.
As long as it's open to the public and there's not specifically reserved for the two businesses. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Triangle Park. Okay, now, if we do that, are we gonna have to purchase the tables and the umbrellas, or?
We just did a lot of work down in Triangle Park. It's actually
I know, it looks good.
really
I like
sharp.
it, yeah.
I think
glad we put
if
all
you're
the
gonna
papers in.
go ahead and do this, I don't know if I would leave the seating, and you can disagree with me if you want, but I think what we should do, the city should have public seating down there. And
Yeah.
if you're getting ice cream at Moshe's, or if you're getting a candy bar at the place next door, or whatever, you should be able to sit there. And so I think the city may want to consider putting up some just general public seating there.
And I have some umbrella shades that would look perfect at the park.
Have you got some extra umbrellas, honey, from your
Yeah.
bus stop?
Yeah, from the bus stop, we could just incorporate that into Triangle Park. It would look fantastic.
Oh, it would
I-
look great.
I'll bring that up at a later meeting. I'm excited that we're putting the businesses down there. I've always thought that
Yeah,
was
you always just tell them
underutilized,
that.
you know that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
We
So,
got an approval for like 15 years ago, 12 years ago for the same thing, but I
I know,
never
I know,
did anything.
but you didn't want to put the grease trap in then.
What?
We didn't want to put the grease trap in. We were going to put a little bit of stand right there in the front. Yeah, yeah. That's what got the whole ball rolling. That's why you and I had several discussions.
Yeah,
That's all right. That's good. It's good to have discussions.
yeah, always.
Yeah. Again, you're a great tenant, been there a long time, and,
Thank you.
and everything you do seems to be first class. So, as long as our building department approves all your prints, and I don't see any reason we shouldn't go for it.
I think
Again,
this should be
It's just gonna make it nicer.
multifaceted. I think we should ask the city attorney to review the lease to make sure that we're doing everything in accordance with the lease, so that's number one. B, I think we should probably get some sort of thumbs up from y'all that says, you know what, when it's done, we should probably install some city-owned public seating in that Triangle Park area that anyone can utilize. And then part C is exactly how you said it, is the city staff needs to approve the plan. We need to have a set of drawings. He has to get a building permit, and then Frank would just kind of have to, I don't want to say babysit the project, but you'd have to work with our building official to get it done in an organized fashion.
And I'm okay with working with you on the city-owned seats outside, whatever when you can give us some ideas. But I do believe that needs to be open to the public, as
Oh.
opposed to just your business.
We just learned our lesson with that little area in front of the bamboo.
Exactly, yeah, you can't do
So,
it. Yeah, shut it down.
Can't keep making that mistake. So I think that just needs to be our seating, so free for all. Wherever you're at, whatever you're eating, you should be able to go there and sit down and have a.
The thing about it is, and I know we're putting the cart before the horse, seats are movable sometimes. So I really think that they should be set in stone. Seriously, this,
With the,
yeah. So no, I don't really don't. Yeah,
I have
Umbrella's
2
fine.
tables
But I
there
just
that
think we should.
people all day long bringing food and sitting there and eat.
Yeah.
For years, I have 2 tables there. Did
Yeah,
you see 'em?
exactly. And they utilize your
And
tables.
they're using
Sure they
it
do.
always,
Yes, they do.
and I don't sell any food yet.
we could go with a heavier set picnic table or what, I know what you're getting at. We
Yes,
can
yes,
talk
something
about
that's,
that.
a bit like, I don't know, where's the last
They're
time
the solid cement tables. They're the greatest. Like Moshe has in front of his store right now where the people sit.
Yeah,
They sit there all the time, and they also have a hole if you put an umbrella in the front. That would be his choice, to have an umbrella. He could put one there.
who's gonna control the umbrellas? When you put their umbrellas, you need to shut them off every night, if not, the wind will
See,
kill
I'm
them.
talking about umbrellas that already popped open that you can't shut. But
That are
we'll talk about
wind-rated.
that. We'll talk about that.
What?
I know exactly what he's talking about. It's a wind-rated
Here,
umbrella that's
here it is,
open.
right here.
Yeah,
That's it, that's it. You can go through those at your leisure. I brought those up for Frank, but Frank already knew all about it.
He already knew about those umbrellas.
I like that.
But anyway, Moshe has been in the past for many, many years, and certainly is a good businessman, certainly is a wonderful person to contribute to the community. If I ever go to Moshe to say, hey, Moshe, I need a few things for whatever I'm doing over the years, he has given me boxes of, over the years, I don't even want to say how many boxes full of stuff he's given me. A lot, right, Moshe?
Mhm.
Hats, all sorts of stuff, beach balls, towels. And so he is a real asset to our community, especially with guns. Moshe in all those years have always cooperated, never got into that nonsense that goes on down there. I will compliment him on that. He has never got into any of that nonsense, and you know what I'm talking about, nonsense. And I think that's a real feat, and I want to congratulate you on that. He's never gonna, I call it nonsense, because that's exactly what it is, nonsense. And always very helpful in everything that he does, and a real great business. That's all I can say about that.
I'm good with going forward.
All right, so we'll request the city attorney just to review the lease, just to make sure we're doing everything all right. We'll get some costs on some seating and some tables out there, and we'll probably request a budget amendment for that. And then we'll have Frank involved with the construction to make
Didn't
sure
we
it gets
have
done.
that seating situation at one time, Dave? Didn't Debbie have that all lined up at one time? Some type of seating down there, whether it was tables, benches? I thought we had that lined up. That would goes way back when I was the mayor. I passed that a long time ago because I was waiting all this time for the tables.
We might have that plan, but we certainly don't have that budget. I can see Vince looking at me right now. So we'll figure it out. I mean, everything that we're doing, that's an easy one to figure out. But I think now, Dave did a really nice job. If you haven't seen that area lately,
it's
go down
lovely.
there and check it out. It's
Did a great
gorgeous. So I think it's time to probably utilize that. You can't just sit on the pavers. You got to have something. So
That's really nice down there.
Good plan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We'll work with you.
So, Moshe, when you can, if you can just get, get Frank DeSantis' phone number. He's the building official. Work with him on getting him a set of plans. You'll have to pull a permit. You'll have to go through all those types of things, and we'll work with you the best we can and get it done quick. All right?
He's gonna contact me, or shall I?
The lady up front, her name's Patty. That's his permit tech. She'll hook you up with all the information you need.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is a citywide project update that was requested by the mayor. Did you want to continue with that, or?
Dave has a 15-minute presentation that he wanted to give
Okay.
today, but the
Okay.
mayor, that's complete sarcasm.
He does.
The mayor wanted this on there, and I kind of had told him, I said, geez, we're really in the third or fourth inning of a lot of these projects, namely the city center project, indeed, if that's what we end up calling it. But I didn't understand his request because, Shane, do you have an update on the Publix building? Well, sure, but is that really a city project? Just because it's happening in the city of Madeira Beach really doesn't mean that we're funding it or have anything to do with their timelines and those types of things. So I thought that today, if you had any very generic questions, like when's public opening, that type of stuff, we could answer those. But I'd really like to defer this probably until even after the first of the year, so at least from a city center standpoint, a road construction standpoint, Dave's Marina project standpoint, we would be able to give you probably a more in-depth, report on it. Dave's fuel dock is in. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. If everybody's coming down to the thing on Saturday, you'll see it. It's remarkable. Normandy's probably, are we in the 8th inning, Dave? Probably even approaching the 9th. The city center, I would say, is in the 4th inning, and we've had some hiccups along the way, but nothing to get too scattered about. They're seeding the fields today. All of us city staff know more about sodding and seeding grass than we ever care to know ever in our lives. But if you have any questions about anything, the Marriott, the Publix, you name it, fire away. Otherwise, I would say let's put this on the table and we can pull it off the table when we've got a better idea of some of the finality on some of this.
Well, I think the thing that maybe Travis was after, like you're saying, Shane, is people will walk up to you and say,
Right.
when's that building going to be done at the end of 140th?
Right.
You know, well, that's not a city project.
Right.
I always say it's not a city project. I have not heard exactly if they've heard in City Hall when they expect to be open at that. I think that's probably what we're.
I think you're exactly right, and I think the mayor just, him and all of you, you get pinched. Where the hell's that restaurant we've been talking about 2 years ago? Well, I get it, I understand it, and that's another one. They're taking their sweet time, and they should, to find the right restaurant to your partner, and they just haven't been able to do that. Do they still want to build a restaurant? Are the plans still in place? You bet. Everything's rolling. They've been working around the clock. I work on that project just as much as I do now than I did a year and a half ago. So they're still plugging away. You look at the condo building just south of Kitty Stewart Park, that's almost done. That's a Bob Lyons project. He's pushing away on that one. The Marriott keeps getting delayed, and there's reasons for that, but when you get a corporate Marriott, two different partners and a contractor involved, they ran into some hiccups, so now it looks as if it's going to be early January, which is still fine.
Another one right now is curiosity of the black fence right up here at the end of Municipal Drive.
Yeah.
What is going on, and when is that gonna happen? What are they doing up there?
Well-
Is that where the CVS is gonna be? I mean,
Yes.
they asked me so doggone many questions, one after the other, I'm saying, wait a minute, you
Okay,
know?
so the black fence is probably a silt fence, Dave, if I'm not mistaken, a tall silt fence. The original pizza building that we affectionately know, that was supposed to be demoed October 1st. You know how construction works. If you say October 1st, it'll be done by December 1st. But they ran into some delays in their environmental testing, so that's fine. We did the same thing. How many times have Dave and I ran into that? Happens all the time. So in a matter of, I would say, 30 days, you'll see equipment mobilizing to take down that facility, as well as the old mobile station and the old car wash, and kind of clear that site out. And then the construction of the new CVS will begin, and a huge parking lot to the north of there.
Dave, do you know, did they take the tanks out of that mobile station? They did, didn't they?
It was a clean site.
Yeah, because that's a real production.
Actually, before the two of you were elected, at least at one time, I think when we were talking about revitalizing Archibald Park, the city was looking into purchasing that piece of property, so we did our diligence in finding out that it wasn't contaminated and, remediated and all that stuff.
Is there anything happening that we could talk about at the old Lever Rock site?
Yeah.
That's another one.
It's just, and I don't want to be, coy or snooty. It's just, sometimes on these developments, if you let out the wrong information and there's other property acquisition that needs to be made, all of a sudden that property gets a lot more expensive. Jim Holton is going about as fast ahead as I've seen or heard him do in this regard ever. He has an architect. Some of us city staff have seen a site plan. He's interested in doing it's going to be an interesting project if the Plan Commission and you allow it. He's going to be asking for some height variances, thank you. But in that particular area, there really isn't anyone that I would think would be getting a view blocked. So I think we'll be okay there. But it involves a restaurant, a hotel, a pool, tiki bar area, and then 2 condo buildings, which is very interesting. And so, but he too is still in the process of working with financial partners, finding a restaurateur partner to run the restaurant, so on and so forth. But that's another one. Dave and I just had a meeting with the gentleman last week, and he wants to get something in front of you within the next 30 days, which I thought was a little bit aggressive. But if he can do it, more power to him.
Is actually.
Yeah.
So didn't we recently do some ordinances that Dave Healy come down here and helped us with? So when we get into this area where this town center is gonna be,
Correct.
over here,
Yep.
that we'll be able to offer
Yes.
something to the developers that come in.
Correct.
Instead, we have this wonderful town center, but you can't do anything.
Correct.
We're really sorry about it.
Correct. Well, you hit it right on the head, and I want to just have the disclosure. We didn't do it for the Holton development. We did it
No,
for
we
that
did it.
whole center.
Yeah, the whole
In anticipation of the very loft properties coming up for sale and probably, in all, honesty, being demolished and being redeveloped, the Madeira Way parcel, so on and so forth. So you've done your heavy lifting. Now it's those guys getting all those pieces in place. And I don't ever dream to have some of the money that these developers have, but when you're putting 15, 20, 25 million of your own money in place, you make sure everything's in line before you sign on the dotted line. And so that's what's happening. It's happening with a variety of projects. So although I'm discouraged that we don't have a restaurant and the Lev Rocks property isn't moving as fast as I'd like, I totally understand where these guys are at, and we do everything from a city standpoint to roll out the red carpet and keep things moving with these guys, keep them excited, keep things rolling, so.
And there's nice comments made about that, Shane. You need to be complimented on the actions that take place in this building. The people that come in and want to develop. I've heard lots of compliments
Well,
about
that's-
how they're treated in the city hall. Commissioners we should all be proud
Glad to hear it.
of what we hear out there on the street.
Good.
Very nice.
Appreciate it.
It's been a lot of long years. I've heard that in a comment.
Glad to hear it.
So, put the crown on.
appreciate it. We have one more key development that could be occurring in the Johns Pass area. It's too early to comment on that, but it would be a parking alleviation and housing issue as well. So a lot of neat stuff happening. So stay encouraged. We're on top of every single one, and in the January, February timeframe, probably when we're really starting to move into some of these facilities, we'll have a better idea on some of this other stuff as well. And if anybody wants a tour of this facility, it's really taking place or shape.
We're allowed to get into this building now?
Real quick. Well, you got to wear a hard hat, so you got to
I figured we might
mess
have
up
to
your
have
hair,
it.
but you can definitely. Come
That's
on
a
out
great
and
view.
they'll
You gotta
walk
check
you
it
through.
out.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's a fantastic view. Sid took me around the other day.
Yep.
With a hard hat. I had a hard hat.
I was afraid to ask because I figured maybe we're not far enough along yet to be so nosy. I can see it really good from the outside where I live. You wonder what it's like on the inside. Have you been in? You been in? That's what I didn't know either. How'd you get in there,
I
Terry?
didn't ask. I just walked into the construction trailer. Not my first rodeo.
Oh, you acted like a big shot, like you was a
You
There
guys
you
own
go.
it.
You know how to act like
Sid
that,
says,
honey.
I know who you are. Here's a hat. Thank you very much.
As big as he is, nobody says no.
There you go.
Yeah,
You
my
tell him.
hard hat, I
You
might
tell him, young lady.
There's
on and
something
go up there.
to be said about being big.
Yeah, Pat, don't say that. Nope.
Well, according to the sign they have out in front of Publix, they're going to open up this Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, so that's good news. I'll be
Don't go
really
down
glad.
to
to-
about
Are we
Monday
believing that
because you'll
sign?
get trampled to death.
I know.
I'm not going down till Monday. I value my life too much.
We've waited this long.
Yeah, what's a few
Yeah, a couple more
right?
days won't hurt. Okay.
So is the roof on the city yet, this building? Did they finish the roof yet?
It's not finished.
No.
I mean, it's partially up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only thing that we're really having some drama with is the glass that's encompasses the auditorium is on back order, significantly on back order.
Yeah.
So that'll be a stretch, but other than that, we should be all right. So, all in all, this isn't a bad. I've done a lot of construction, with these guys that I've got working with me. This has been a pretty smooth one so far, and we are just tearing it apart from a budget standpoint, even making sure that, the furniture isn't too expensive. When we can find something for a better deal, we do that. Fitness equipment is the same thing. So we're going to be saving a couple of bucks here in the next couple of weeks, just doing our own work on it as well. So coming along well.
Looks good. They're working like mad on that field.
Well, they better be.
Time is slipping away.
Softball February, in the
Yeah,
middle of
that's good.
February.
good.
I need grass.
Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the proclamation proclaiming Madeira Beach as the first Bitcoin city in the world.
Yeah, if I can have the floor, and we'll invite Misty Wells up to the podium here in a minute, but here, this is just an idea, and you can eat it up or spit it out however you want, but the Bitcoin company, if you will, has bought up and taken over what was the Beefle-Brady football game, a bowl game in December, and that's played at the Trop. Routinely, they have, the days before, I think, the universities, the teams come down probably for a week to 10 days, and 2 days before the game, they have a beach party, and it's covered by ESPN, and it's all part of the festivities of playing in the bowl game. Well, that was done, I believe, in St. Pete Beach at one of the larger resorts. And Misty's a contracted consultant that works for me to get these types of things, and she was able to secure this to occur not in St. Pete Beach, but in Madeira Beach, which is great. So we get a lot of publicity. We get 2 major universities in town, plenty of ESPN coverage, so on and so forth. Bitcoin, then, is now the sponsor. Beefle-Brady is out the door, and Bitcoin is the issue. And so when we went further into this, Misty said, geez, I'm getting a lot of feedback that, if the city would consider being a Bitcoin city, magazines such as Forbes and those types of words came out of Misty's mouth, and of course my ears perked up. And so, not understanding what Bitcoin was, I did some of my research, and I can be honest, I don't think I'd invest my life savings in Bitcoin at the moment, but it's an interesting concept and so on and so forth. So with that, I want to give it to Misty because I think she can do a better job of articulating what it is and what we would have to do this, but you don't have to do this to get the game, to get the party, on the 24th. That's going to happen regardless. But it's an interesting concept, and we would be the first one in the world, and I don't think it would be an imposition or we wouldn't impose the acceptance of Bitcoin on any of our businesses. We probably couldn't even do that. I don't think we would accept Bitcoin at City Hall for, taxes or parking tickets or whatever you pay for here. So with that, Misty is here to kind of give you a heads up on the festivities, but also this Bitcoin resolution.
Hi, everybody. You guys hear me okay? So just to touch on the bowl game that Shane talked about briefly, we are, and it will be announced after this week in a press release by ESPN, and we'll work on that with the city as well. We will be the official beach city for the Bitcoin Bowl for the next 3 years. We were fortunate enough to be able to swift that away over from St. Pete Beach from the trade winds. They were looking for a new home, and they're thrilled to death to have Madeira Beach and have the city behind it and bring that event here. We'll be hosting the event on Johns Pass, and also Johns Pass Beach is what I call it. I don't know if that's the official name of it. And we'll be bringing about 500 people from the bowl, including the teams, the officials, families. This event's open to the public. We'll be going to Bubba Gump Shrimp to feed everyone that's immediately with that 500. Then we shift over to the beach for what we call our beach bash. And it's almost like Olympic Games, a friendly competition in between the two teams that are selected. It's a little too early in the season right now to know the teams. As soon as I get a short list, though, I can share it with you guys. And then as soon as I get the official word who's selected, obviously that will be blasted out as well through all the channels. This bowl game is very similar to the Outback Bowl, which is a bigger brand bowl. It is in the top 20, though, of bowl games in college football. With this particular bowl, because it is on ESPN, they get about 100 million people that will see, in some instance, the game, the B-roll, things like that, and that is worldwide. So the exposure that we're getting by working with them and hosting this beach bash is, I don't think it would be in our budget probably to afford something like that. So it is great that we have the opportunity to have this. Like Shane said, this is happening regardless of whether you get behind the idea of us being a Bitcoin city. This was formulated in another way for us to really get more marketing and worldwide and nationwide exposure as being a cutting-edge city. And with all the new things that we're doing in the city center and our forward motion and everything that you guys up there are doing, I felt like it was really a good fit if you're into the idea to become the first official Bitcoin city. I, again, had to educate myself, what is Bitcoin and what does it mean? Everybody has heard a little bit about it. I did attach some information that you guys can take home and read and study further. I can answer some questions, but I am not by any means a Bitcoin expert. I can explain it to you in layman terms and how I understand it through meeting with the co-founders of Bitcoin. So do you guys first have any questions on the beach bash that we're doing here?
What are you going to do when we get to the beach bash? Are they going to play volleyball on the beach? Are they going to have a...
Good question. What we're going to be doing is they'll have a great meal over at Bubba Gump's, and they've been an instrumental part in sponsoring this and helping us afford what we're doing over there. They'll then go under the bridge, go over to the beach. We'll have a stage set up with live music. And for about an hour and a half, they're really just going to enjoy the beach. Most of these people and teams, given the location where they're from, have never even been to the beach before. So they're just going to be in awe of the view, the water, the sand, the dolphins, the pirate boat going by, people checking out John's Pass. We'll have paddle boards out there. The alligator attraction is going to do an alligator petting zoo, which I think is going to be phenomenal. And we'll have volleyball courts set up, and just how you would envision if you went to the movies what a beach day would be like, it's going to be set up like that. And then towards the end of the time, they are on a strict time limit just due to their practice schedule and things like that. So we only get to keep them till about 6:30. we'll do for the last hour a friendly competition. The competition, we're still working out all the details. One of the main highlights is a belly flop contest. And Shane's shaking his head because I roped him into kind of kicking that off. And I think, welcoming everyone to the city by being the first one in the pool with a belly flop. They get a big kick out of that. So we're working about 3 different angles. We have to keep it pretty simple. There's certain things I can't do, like tug of war, because we don't want to have any injuries.
I was just going to ask you.
Right, we had to keep it, I presented a couple things and like, oh, can't do that because of injuries in the game. So the belly flop will be the kind of final highlight. We'll do a quarterback toss where they're tossing water balloons to the wide receivers. Then we'll switch the roles, and the wide receivers will be throwing water balloons to them. So it's all kind of fun family things that are competitive in a good nature and things like that. I am working on the final details to get approved. So once I have that, I can submit it out to Cheryl, and she can distribute it. But it's along those lines to answer your question. And the public's invited. It's completely free. And we want everybody that's here on vacation to come and just be a part of it and have a good time. The entire thing will be filmed. The B-roll will be during commercial breaks, when they have timeouts, things like that. It'll be on their website. It'll be on the team's website, alumni, so it will be on social media. We will get a lot of priceless marketing and exposure through doing this, so it's really fantastic.
So you're looking at a full-day event, though, right?
No, actually, it's about 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yes.
It's a lot in 4 hours.
It's a lot in 4 hours. So Bubba said they're up to the challenge. We'll get everybody kind of in and out of there. Then we go over to the beach. I wish we had a full day, but because of their practice schedule, we'll have about 4 hours. So, and they'll be arriving by bus. And then as far as, general parking for people, we'll just utilize what's normally existing here, the garages and things like that. But we'll have a detailed plan of how everything's going to work very soon for everyone to look at. And
The date of that?
it is December 24th, which is Christmas Eve. I know, that makes it a little tough. Usually, the bowl game falls the week before Christmas, which is fantastic because, as we know, it traditionally is a very slow time on the beaches, hotels, shops, things like that. I believe TV time and slots for these bowl games dictates, how it all falls down. This is the one that is closest to Christmas ever. The game will be played the day after Christmas, and it's at Tropicana Field, just to let you know.
That's good, because I'll tell you what, we have a lot of visitors here.
I know, and I'm hoping they'll all be a part of the Beach Bash.
Wonderful.
They'll all go, to the game as well, and we will also have a presence at the game on the Jumbotron, signage on the field. We're planning some type of, I'm not sure, official dedication on the field during the game. We'll be in the official program, and I'm squeezing as much exposure out of this as extremely possible. So it's very good for us. On to the Bitcoin. The easiest way to explain it, and again, we can even do, I can bring someone in to speak from Bitcoin specifically. It is a digital form of currency. So imagine that you own, like Doug, the 7-Eleven. You accept cash or credit card. I don't think anybody takes checks anymore, but Bitcoin is another form of digital currency. And my question was, well, if someone comes into my store and they buy something and they use their Bitcoin and they use it similar to a credit card exchange, how do I get my hard cash for the hard cash I paid for that item? How does that work? I don't want electronic cash. At the end of the night, they cash it out and settle up just like you would your credit card machine, and that hard cash is then put into your account just like if it was Visa or MasterCard. The great thing about that is you do not pay fees on it. So that's why it's the new trend of currency, because opposed to paying certain percentages, and up to a certain point you pay no percentages on the money. My question then to them was, how do you make money? That doesn't make any sense. How they make money is working with bigger people such as PayPal, Overstock.com, different entities, eBay, things like that. They pay a fee for the Bitcoin because they're more international. Currently, right now, there's about 1.7 million people that are members of Bitcoin. So the reason that I felt it's good for the city of Madeira Beach to become the first official Bitcoin city is we're tied in with the Beach Bash, and they are the official sponsors. It costs us nothing to do so, and it's strictly a marketing standpoint is the way I'm looking at it. For us to get international exposure for being the model city for having over 100 businesses that accept Bitcoin, which in turn makes those 1.7 million people want to come on vacation here. So that's my motivation to make this happen, is to get us on the cover of Forbes as the model city, to get USA Today, Larry King, those people here to do a press conference and find out, why we decided to be the first one and be, kind of breaking news is what my hope is by doing this proclamation.
Well, Misty, will they be able to come here all through the year and use their Bitcoin?
Anytime at all.
I see.
As long as we have merchants that accept it.
Yeah.
Right, and now there is no cost whatsoever for any business or merchant to sign up to accept it. Again, that was another question of mine. They will come to their business and spend as much time with them and their employees, just like a new credit card company would, to help them understand how to use it. I would hope that they use it and it's beneficial to them. If for some reason they don't desire to use it, that's extremely their choice. So in my opinion, it's just my opinion, it's a win-win for us, and I don't see any downside to moving forward with something like this.
And it's like an experiment. If the village people will take to it.
Correct, and that's,
First of all, you got to prove to them this. The first thing we'll have to do is prove to them this really works.
right,
Because the first thing they're going to think, there's something crooked about this.
right, exactly.
There's something crooked about this. So
But you could put the onus on them. The question I got for the city attorney is, we can pass a proclamation stating that tomorrow is Vince Tenalia Day, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Can we pass a proclamation that states, we proclaim that we are the first Bitcoin city in the world, and the imposition included in that proclamation is moot, right? There's nothing there.
My suggestion is you do it by resolution and not by proclamation, and what you do is you basically say that, you say that yourself that you are a Bitcoin city, and then have everybody else make the determination that you're the first in place, and then you're not committed one way or the other.
There you go.
In case somebody has done it yesterday and we didn't realize it.
I think, a proclamation or a resolution is, one or the other for Misty. For her purposes is probably one and the same, somewhat synonymous. I think, I talked to Commissioner Poe about this. I've talked to a couple of you about it. I think, if Misty hit it right on the head. You've got credit card processing people that knock on your door every other day wanting to do that. Vince is a victim of that at City Hall every once in a while. I mean, if they want to accept it, great. What we say in a resolution saying, hey, we accept Bitcoin, we accept Bitcoin. Well, we accept it if the business that wants to accept it accepts it. I don't know if I necessarily see a downside to that, but Bitcoin would have to come on and educate the business owners, and if they want to sign up, they sign up, and there's going to be no hard sell, and off you go. But in an effort to hold on to this, and I think there is some priceless marketing available here. Whenever you see, I get chills when they just Bay News 9 puts Madeira Beach on there as the boats are going out by John's Pass now with that camera out there. If we see Madeira Beach on ESPN on December 26th, that's something special. That's something we haven't had in a while. So completely up to you guys. Again, I don't think this makes or breaks it. I don't know if this makes or breaks it to solidify an ongoing relationship with them, but it certainly points us in the right direction. And as long as no one's really losing out on it, I don't know if it's really problematic. So
I agree. I mean, we are already working with ESPN. We will be doing this event for the next 3 years. I just felt that it was a compliment if everyone was on the same page to also, be the first city that really strives to open our arms to the thought process of Bitcoin, because they are in our backyard. They are going to be here minimum of, the next 3 years. And I don't feel we have anything to lose and have a lot to gain from a marketing and PR standpoint.
Missy, you say we have to have at least 100 businesses sign up in order to do this?
Yes.
Do we have any signed up yet?
I have not attempted to do that because I wanted to address you guys first and gauge your temperature of how you felt about it.
It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I can assure you of that. I watched the charts, so I'm very familiar with it. One of the things, too, that everybody has to understand, the government is beginning to look at this as a barter system,
Mm-hmm.
whereas as a virtual currency, they're not now starting to tax it
Correct.
as property. So I think the biggest problem we might have is educating everyone in Madeira Beach.
I agree.
Including me
Yeah,
and
no,
everybody
I-
else.
Mhm.
We all need, there's too much, I think, in the 2-week period that we had to research this.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even hit the drop in the bucket. And I've probably spent 15, 20 hours reading everything I can get my hands on.
Right.
So it's, I love the idea of having the Bitcoin Bowl here, no problem there. I think the biggest problem we're gonna have is getting the business owners to accept it.
Well, could we,
And understand it. I agree with you.
Understand it,
Mhm.
yes.
could we spend November, though, doing a couple of educational type things? I mean, we could host right here in the auditorium and kind of gauge the interest of some of the business owners. I mean, we could literally still pass this resolution in December and still be timely for what you're doing.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I agree, with the city attorney, whether it's, a resolution or a proclamation, I mean,
That's immaterial.
it's immaterial to me. Again, I'm just looking at it from a marketing standpoint and working for the city. But they're more than happy to do exactly what Shane said and come in and just educate, answer questions. Again, I don't work for Bitcoin. I do my work for the city. And they are happy to take on the onus of doing all the legwork and making this happen if we decide that that's something we want to do.
Is the commission okay with that? Could we spend some time, Misty could line some things up in November to have, a handful of educational type seminars. We could do some during the day, some at night, so the business owners can come on
That would
in,
be great.
hear all about it. And
Sure.
I'm kind of with Commissioner Poe. I'd just like to hear from a Bitcoin person, what it's all about. So if you don't mind that, and then I think we could probably still get organized in late November and decide whether or not at that point, if we want to pass a resolution at that second Tuesday in December to do that. And frankly, for something like this, we could even hold a special meeting in case Misty needed it for marketing purposes before the actual party.
Well, it would seem to me, this is like a credit card company.
No,
It's not.
It's not.
no, ma'am.
It is and it's not, and again, like I said, I'm not by any means, the correct person to ask a lot of questions to in that standpoint, but they are happy to come and, do something in that regard so everybody understands it. I put it in a very simplistic way, and that's how I understand it. It doesn't seem like there's any bad part, because if I decide as a business to accept it, and I change my mind, just if I don't want to use American Express because they raise their rates on me so much, then I say, oh, well, I don't accept that anymore if it doesn't work for me. So in that sense, I felt like it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I will go back and talk to them, and like Shane said, sometimes with PR and press, timing is an issue. So as I move forward with that, I'll just keep everybody in the loop, and, if there will be a time where we have to kind of make a decision, or we'll probably miss our opportunity, and I'll just keep you abreast of those timelines.
I would say let's get a couple of these educational things lined up
Yeah.
ASAP. We can
Okay.
assist in getting the word out to the local businesses.
Remember one thing, though, about Bitcoin. They're not under the SEC.
That is
You
correct.
lose your money, you get
Right.
a fraud, you have no one to go back to.
There's no
It's
customer
not
service number to
traceable.
call.
There's no it's not
Yeah.
traceable money. It's not even traceable anything.
No, the small
And it
amount of research
fluctuates
that I
as
did
well, the
for it-
value of it.
Well, it
So
started out
it is a
like
little more complicated than
A
just,
lot more.
that,
There's only
so.
21 million, and they're not
So
even in
far.
circulation yet.
No,
They're not even in circulation yet.
But think about it this
There's
way.
not even 21 million in, but they'll never make more than 21 million from my small amount of research.
Mm-hmm.
And one Bitcoin today is worth $340.
355 as of this morning.
There you
But
go.
the wild part was, 1 year ago, it was worth $1,185.
Yeah, so
Right.
it really fluctuates.
It
It
really
does.
fluctuates
But
a lot.
again, my thing is, as a business, the machine that it takes to grab a Bitcoin is $850.
So the merchant would have to buy the machine.
Yes, absolutely.
And you
So-
are going to have to pay taxes on whatever you take
And
in.
it'll come under regulation sooner or later. It may not be anytime
It came
soon.
under regulation in
My-
May.
My whole deal was the machine itself that accepts the Bitcoin has to be, we got to work that out. Because again, a $900 investment for each business would be substantial.
You've got to see where it's going to save you some money. What bothers me, and I love it, the idea that we can get someone in here, because if it's at 355 today, and it's come from 1,183, what's our money? Well, Richard Branson can tell you how much he lost by
Right.
investing what he invested. But what do we lose if we go into Bitcoins? If you have a merchant comes in, today your room's $90, he gives you a $90 virtual Bitcoin. Well, tomorrow that coin goes down to 85, and you haven't put it in your bank or wherever you go to exchange it.
Right, so we
What-
need to
what's the
find
ratio?
out
We
what,
need
you
to
know,
know.
we cash out when we get it, do we get the same amount of money, whether it's
Correct.
trading differently? So there are a lot of questions, and I will work on setting up a workshop for the appropriate person that is not me to answer those questions.
Not many of us.
You know, but yeah, I mean, you know, definitely if we all feel good about it and move forward, then we do. And if it's something that we don't, then, you know, we won't. And again, it doesn't affect our relationship with ESPN at all. And that is still intact. And, you know, this was just kind of a cherry on the cake if we decide to, you know, that we feel comfortable in moving forward with it.
What about these ball teams that are going to be starting to come down here to do the practicing? Are they involved in Bitcoin? Are they part of this Bitcoin?
The
situation?
ESPN is accepting Bitcoin as payment for tickets, and actually the teams have the option. There's a $500,000 prize money for whoever wins the bowl. They can make the decision to accept cash or Bitcoin and things like that. So there are a lot of big businesses that are accepting Bitcoin, and again, each individual business and person has to decide if that's something that they want to do. So, you know, I do like the fact that ESPN is behind it. It makes you feel a little more comfortable, and eBay and PayPal and things like that. So they probably understand it a lot better than we do, but we'll rectify that by getting somebody in here. And then I
Sounds
think we
great.
can make some decisions.
Could you clarify one quickly, Misty, is on the bottom line here, it says, to be the first official city of Bitcoin, we have to have 100 businesses in the city and area. In the area, when I went on and did my research, there's 55 companies that take it in the Tampa Bay area, but that wouldn't be considered part of the business.
No, but I
They
think
have to be
because of our
within the
relationship with Treasure Island, if we didn't have enough people in Madeira Beach, we could
Right.
probably kind of throw them under our umbrella since we are a joint chamber.
Okay.
So that's why I included the word area in
I
there.
got you.
Hopefully, we'll just keep it here.
Right.
But if we have to kind of look out towards the sidelines, you know, we might need to do that.
Okay.
So I'll just keep you posted. Should I stay up here? Because I think I'm on for the next thing.
you. I've got some,
Yeah.
Well, Vice Mayor, you can announce the next topic.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Lewis? Did you have something to say?
Oh, Misty, if you want to take
Oh.
a seat, we'll.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Dick Lewis, 561 Crystal Drive. I'm all for promotion, but I really don't think proclaiming Madeira Beach as the first Bitcoin city in the world is a good idea. In fact, I don't really think it's appropriate. This has nothing to do with the acceptance of Bitcoins by merchants or any activity in relation to the use of Bitcoins by anybody. But this action would essentially be advocating and supporting the use of Bitcoins, and it doesn't serve a government purpose or function in any way whatsoever. You know, it simply doesn't make sense to me for the government to get involved in any way, shape, or form with the Bitcoin industry. It has nothing to do with our job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luce. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the discussion of reconsideration of the sister city relationship with the island of Bimini as requested by the Bohemian government.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Vice Mayor, if I can have the floor, and then I'll turn it over to Misty. I think we've all shared in our exhaustion and frustration in regards to this sister city relationship. At face value, I thought it had a lot of promise, just because of its close proximity between the two cities and some of the joint things that we could do together. It was like a lopsided relationship, though. I thought Madeira Beach was certainly doing everything that they possibly could to make this happen, and we did not get the same on the other end. That being said, since we passed a resolution to terminate the sister city relationship, we've been contacted by some of the higher ups that we were supposed to meet with when we were over there, apologizing for their lack of movement and enthusiasm, and are aggressively asking us to reconsider. As you read in my memo, my frustration with the entire thing has probably reached its peak, and so I asked Misty to find out exactly what's going on. I don't know, other than City Hall's probably fielded 2 or 3 phone calls from the Bohemian government every single day for the last 30 days. I gave them a taste of their own medicine and didn't return any phone calls, and I know that that's probably bad business practice, but again, I just didn't want to get into it until I spoke with you all. So with that, Misty has made contact with them, and again, if she's got some good things to say, I think I could probably be convinced to at least reconsider this, but I think we need to have certain things in writing that they'll participate in, or it's not worth our time. Your staff has got some full plates, and something like this is great, but if we don't get any benefit out of it, there's no reason to participate in it. So with that, Misty, the floor is yours.
Hi. I agree with Shane. I was part of the frustration. I was part of the team that went over there initially a few months ago to kind of seal the deal and make all this happen. And we both felt like we were put off in getting the runaround and things like that. And now that, like Shane says, they are aggressively pursuing us and apologizing, and I'm not sure what made that change happen, because we were, ready to move forward and things like that. But it seems like the tides have changed. Of course, I am not interested in pursuing a relationship that is one-sided, and had a conversation with the powers that be over there to kind of unofficially let them know that. And the benefit, of course, that I see, because this is my area, is from the marketing and PR. They spend several hundreds of thousands of dollars marketing the Bahamas as a country. Bimini, they have over 500,000 followers on their social media, things like that. So after speaking with the director of marketing that handles everything for the country, and getting assurances from her that we would be working and co-marketing on different things together that, of course, is approved, I felt like it was worth taking another look at again, because I do feel that we could have great benefit from that point of view in partnering up with them as a sister city. I would recommend that whatever agreement we make with them in moving forward for an action plan, that we all get in writing on both sides and signed, whatever we decide that relationship's going to be. So it's a solid confirmation of it's a beneficial partnership for us. But based on their aggressiveness over the last month and my conversation with their director, I do feel that it's worth taking another look at again. And I don't want to waste anybody's time, and I don't think anybody has time to waste, but in my opinion, it does look like something that it's worth moving forward with. You guys have any questions?
My only suggestion would be, if you want to move forward with this, is we don't do anything until we finish our city hall and get our own city in order before we start bringing them back in. I wasn't happy with the way they handled everything, including all the donations that the city put together to send over there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm, quite frankly, not in favor of doing it right now.
And that is, something that we can table. They were pushing to be a part of the King of the Beach, which is next weekend, and I said I have to be very honest with you, I really don't see something happening that quickly.
But I'll tell you what happened
But-
too, and now I'm going to go off on a tangent. They got put up here. We treated them.
I know.
The red carpet got rolled out, and Misty had to stay at a cottage down in some scary part when we flew over there. I mean, it's not a give and take type relationship. It really isn't. And that was the one thing that stuck in my mind. Something's occurring that they want to come here and see. King of the Beach. They loved it here because we treated them right. Until they can tell me from a marketing standpoint, we'll put your Madeira Beach logo in every hotel room in Bimini, or we'll give you a logo inside the casino, or we'll do this, that, and the other thing, it ain't worth it. It's just not worth it. So
No.
I don't think you have to make a decision today. I think you need to be aware that they are literally recruiting us to do what was initially planned. Misty's under contract to do this type of thing, and we now have we have an event staff. So we can put some people on this and see if we can't solidify something. But if this guy thinks he's getting an invitation for the King of the Beach in 2 weeks, and I'm going to scramble to find him 6 hotel rooms,
We're
not gonna
do
happen.
it.
No.
Not after the way they treated her. I
Right.
would have had a French fix.
Misty's an
Yeah.
easy travel companion, I can tell you that. But she took it in good stride. But it certainly hasn't been. It's been a lopsided relationship. And when are you going to get rid of your old fire truck because we need one on Bimini? Well, our old fire truck's got a value of 6 figures. I don't think you're probably going to get it. And how would we ship it over there, by helicopter or what? It's just they're not thinking some of these
They're
things
up to
through.
something, honey.
Yeah.
So it's gotten very, very frustrating for me, and so if we want to kind of continue on, I don't have a problem with that. And if Misty can solidify some sort of marketing, remember it was the fishing tournaments, and they have a ton of that type of thing in Bimini, and if we can attract some of that over here so that the marina benefits, and we can have a Bimini fishing tournament or whatever the case may be, and Dave makes $10,000 selling fuel, that's a reason to do this. But if it's just to send a delegation back and forth every other year to visit each other, I don't have time for it.
Well, you gotta remember too, when you go out to cut in Bimini, you're in deep water.
Right.
You got 10, 12, 15 miles to get to deep water around here. So it really doesn't make it beneficial for them to come over here and fish our waters.
Well, what they're looking for is a change of environment. They just want something different, and I think these are guys with big enough bucks that they just want to see a different type of scenery, and that part of it I understood. So send them over, send the big spenders over here and have them fuel up at Dave's place.
Well, like
and,
we used to do, just come right on over and join up and get your money right out and put it where your mouth is.
Well, and
That's
Right.
the way we did when we went to Bimini.
Well, and I think at a certain point, in a nice fashion, Misty has said that. What are we going to get out of this? Otherwise, it doesn't pay to keep calling Crawford 3 times a day. And I think we should probably, at least at this point, let her explore what they'll commit to. And if they're not willing to commit to anything, and we're not going to benefit from any of their tourism dollars, but they want stuff from us, then the lopsided relationship's just not worth it.
Right. And I think Misty can handle that very
Yeah.
nicely, very professionally, as you go along with them.
A lot better than you and I would.
No, yeah, not like we say things.
Well,
Why don't
and
we-
I agree, though. I mean, I really do see the big picture, though. And fortunately, probably for me, I wasn't part of the initial thing. I just caught the tail end of it, so I don't have the bad taste in my mouth. And I completely understand, and I 100% agree. I don't want to waste my time either. I do see some value if I can get the commitment in writing from them of what the mutual benefit is going to be for both of us and what we both want, and it has to be real.
Yeah.
So if that can happen, I just didn't really want to even waste my time moving forward and even doing that without speaking to you first.
Well, and you passed the resolution that's severed the agreement. So now if we're going to proceed, I need at least to come to you and say, hey, do you want us to revisit this or not? And so if you're saying, it's all right. It's worth some of Misty's time under her contract with me to at least explore this. We'll report back in 60 days, and if there's something real, we'll bring it to you.
The problem is the trust is broken, and that's a hard thing to gain back.
Mm-hmm.
And I've dealt with the Bahamians since 1976, so I'm very familiar with everything that goes on over there. I've spent 5 years over there, so it's a hard trust to get back with, for me anyway.
It felt like 5 years that Misty and I sat there waiting for the one guy that we were supposed to speak to the entire time we
See,
were
I would
there.
have already
Right.
been out the front door.
We weren't that far apart. If we would have had our own car, we probably would have done it. So, I mean,
That's
it
why
just...
they make the jitney.
Exactly. I don't want to bag on it too much. I mean, if there's something there, there's something there. But it's been a rough start, and if we can salvage it and there's something there, great. If not, we'll just say thanks for playing, but no thanks.
I mean, it's really up to you.
Okay, so what you're saying is that we can give Misty, the 60 days she needs to do a little more
I
checking
think
into it,
just
and then bring it up again in another workshop?
I'll put it on the next workshop once Misty solidifies something one way or the other. Chances are, I don't think you're going to have a workshop unless we call a special one in November due to the Thanksgiving holiday. I think that's relatively routine. So we'll have something between now and Christmas, and we'll put it on that agenda if
Okay.
she's ready.
I guess I'm happy to do the work and present it, but if at the end of the day you're like, we're just not interested in all, then I don't, I obviously wouldn't want to waste my time, to do that. If there's a small chance based on what I present that you are interested, then I'm more than happy to do the work.
You're a good person.
I'm very patient, and it's okay. I do see the value in it, though, if we can get where we need to be.
They have something to offer back.
I believe so, and now that I've gotten past the politicians and talked to the person in marketing, and we speak the same language, I got quite excited about it, so that
All you
kind of...
have to do is drive down Nassau Street and realize how desperate they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, we were there in the heyday, so to speak, right after
Right.
they got their independence. It's really, they've really run the little city into the ground.
Right, whereas ours is on the opposite end of the spectrum, so, I just need, whether you want me to put a little time into it and see what, if you're interested, I guess is the question.
I think my direction under the contract is let's see what they've got to say. But I wasn't going to put somebody that works for me on it with you guys telling me 60 days ago we were done.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they're pushing forward, but let's see what Missy comes up with in the next couple of months.
Okay, good.
So we're telling her now to pursue it a little further.
You're giving me direction to see what we can
Telling you.
figure out.
You decide to-
Misty's going to be my conduit to speak
Listen,
marketing.
Shane, this is
Right.
if you decide for her.
Correct.
Just
So
giving
and
you
I'm
that.
I'm gonna
I think- Is that what we're doing, gang?
We're just voicing our opinion.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're doing. You take it from there.
all right. We'll report back.
Okay, thanks.
Ball's in your court.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Thanks,
Actually,
Misty.
it's in the Bahamians' court.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Now,
All right, with that, Misty, I think we can probably excuse you if you got anything else. The other event people are around if you need them for anything.
I do.
The next item on the agenda is discussion on name of the city project.
Well, I don't think there's any discussion to that. It's as obvious as the nose on our face.
Is it? All right, good.
I think it is.
Yep. We're going to leave it centered,
Absolutely, the
C-E-N-T-R-E?
Yeah, do you like that? I
think
thought it was
it's
just kind of a neat niche.
And I read all that list of things, what center meant.
Yeah.
I'm so doggone smart about center, I'll never want to.
Well, there was a page of stuff,
Stay in the center.
but when you read it, the definitions really kind of
Very
make
fitting. Yeah.
sense. And so if you're all right with that, I think the mayor would be okay with that. I've been just using that term, but I certainly am not at liberty or the authority to name it. But I think if you guys are okay with that, we'll proceed with that.
I think it's great. What
I do
you
too.
guys?
I
thought it
liked
was
it. I
great.
couldn't come up with anything any better. It kind of gives us a focal point.
It sure sounds better than City Hall.
Okay,
Has
then
a
we'll
lot of-
just,
It's got a lot of class, I think. Do you like it, Terry?
City Center's fine for the city,
I
this
think it's good.
point.
Yep.
I'd like to reserve the right to name some of the fields.
Oh,
you
definitely.
certainly have that.
Down the road, we need to name a field or two.
Yes.
And
We're going to discuss that now?
NTRE.
No.
Okay.
I
City
think
Center's fine.
Okay.
One moment, please. DRA.
Okay, the next item on the agenda was a discussion on the city clerk supervision. Again, this was from Mayor Travis Palladino. Did you want to put this aside?
We can talk about it. Amy and I have had multiple conversations about this, and I think it came up, some of you had spoken to me during the clerk's evaluation and job description. And due to the sunshine law, it's painted you into a corner, and it's difficult. And you have to manage an employee that I work with on a daily basis and manage her in a fashion where you don't really get to talk to each other about how you manage her. That's tough, and it's tough on Amy, too. You're in a situation where your city manager, I think it's safe to say, Amy's going to roll her eyes maybe, that your city manager and your city clerk get along, and everything in City Hall kind of clicks. But I personally believe that there's a better system, and it's the system that the city of Seminole does, where the city clerk reports to the city manager. In this instance, we've even added staff to the city clerk's office, and Amy's very diplomatic about how we use C, who's in the back. But I would say this, take your time with it. B, don't pay any extra dollars to have a special election just for this one topic, because I think you have a charter that probably needs to be reviewed quite extensively. I would say that I would advise you, don't let the relationship between the city manager and the city clerk go to hell before you make a change. I would think that, when things are good is probably when you guys should do that. Other than that, though, I don't know what else to say. One of the city commissioners said this, and it's kind of the Steve Kochek, I wish he was here, version of this that he and the city attorney disagree with. Everything that comes out of City Hall, anything that's done here, is Crawford's responsibility. So regardless of who Amy reports to, she needs to work with me, because if anything leaves these doors, it's my responsibility. Well, we had that interaction between Mr. Kochek and the city attorney where if Amy wanted to go rogue, and we've had this conversation before, she always laughs about it, she could. And I don't want to say we were close to that situation, but we had a situation in the past that just didn't work out. So recently, and it's not embarrassing for anyone, we had a situation in City Hall that I had to make a work assignment for, and it's a very expensive work assignment. It involves a lot of dollars, and Amy is more than capable of handling that. However, I needed to make sure that it got done correctly, and I assigned it to a different employee who works for me, because if he screws it up, he's in trouble. I can't do that with Amy, because she doesn't necessarily work for me, but she works with me, and she works very well with me. So this is a big, combobbled, goofy report on, it's okay right now, but the system itself, what's in print, doesn't make sense, because the five of you have to manage her without speaking to her, but she works with me on a daily basis on things that her and I are both responsible for. The other thing that really, I thought, spurred a lot of this is Amy gets, I don't want to say inundated, but she has a lot of open records requests. And a lot of that has 90% to do with the city manager's office, because frankly, a lot of what I do is what hits the public. So Amy's very good about working with me on those types of things, but that's also another tough subject where you put your faith in somebody else and saying, well, this is the, are you providing documents, or are you answering questions? We're not required to answer questions, but we do have to provide the public document, so on and so forth. So, wow, just a goofy corner to be painted into, but I guess at the end of the day, unless we know that we're going to have a spring election, I certainly wouldn't rush to put this on the ballot. I don't know, and this is a question for the city attorney, if the board can give direction to say, hey, listen, we understand that Amy's a charter officer, but we charge her with cooperating and working with the city manager on anything that comes out of City Hall. I know the charter is very specific, and I'm not sure of all the legality involved there, but you don't have an issue because the two work well together, but the system certainly isn't as good as it probably could be.
So, Tom, a question?
The charter provides what the city clerk is to do. And as for managing the city clerk, you have to manage me as the city attorney, you have to manage the city manager as well, and you have to manage the city clerk. And I know that all those don't seem to fall into place all the time, and Shane has a different view about this than I do as the city attorney, but there's only one city in Pinellas County that I'm aware of that puts the city clerk under the supervision of the city manager. And there are suggested changes in Oldsmar. That's the second city that's thinking about doing it, putting the city clerk under the city manager. But
But this is my question. I said this to Shane. Now, here we are, here's 5 bosses. We're your boss, Shane's boss, our boss. And we're not allowed to talk to each other about our employee,
yeah, you are, every single time you meet.
not in the sunshine law.
Well,
Right.
every single
Here,
time you
right
meet
here,
here.
today.
Right now,
The
you
What
opportunity.
if we don't want to do it here? That ain't the way you handle employees.
Well,
You know
it's the same thing with Shane. Neither one of you, the two of you can't meet with Shane either. You can't meet with Amy together, and you can't meet with me together. There's no difference. So,
Well, that's what I'm saying now.
Yeah.
But this is a stupid sunshine law again, which I absolutely hate. And I don't care who knows it. I hate it. It's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. I had 52 employees. You mean you're going to tell me I can't talk to my employees because of the sunshine law? Unless I take them out on the middle of Madeira Way and say, now we're going to have a little conversation. So all the world can hear about what I have to say about my employees. Now, to me, that's about how stupid that is. That is stupid.
Well, then, by God, let's go to Tallahassee.
There you go. I'm ready to go
I'm
to
ready to
Tallahassee
go.
and
I
repeal
mean, I don't
this.
know what the League of Cities all these years.
Really? Why do they
Look at
put
this
up with
crap.
it? They just shouldn't put up with it.
They
They shouldn't put up with
it's
it.
in the Florida Constitution.
We're gonna get
You
it
have
out
to
of there.
change the Florida Constitution.
Come on, Tom, you help us get it out of that Constitution, because
We
you're
want to
smart,
amend the Constitution.
you're smart enough to do that.
And not only are they doing the sunshine law, now we have to go to ethics training.
Yes,
Yeah, now we
Seriously?
have to go.
Really? I mean, that's just not right, you guys. You guys in Tallahassee just need to stop. I mean, stop what you're doing. This is just not right.
and they should also stop talking about, if you pass this bill, I'll pass this bill for
Yeah,
you
well,
at
they-
the elevator.
They can do that.
I
Well, they do
know.
it all the
Yes,
time.
they can, but we
Amy, you were right, we should have kept it off the agenda. The issue was this, it really hasn't become an issue with management up until lately, and I keep using the word sophisticated, and it sounds egotistical, but we are becoming a more centralized, sophisticated organization. And when it was an IT issue, who's gonna head up IT? Well, I've got 2 people over there that are more than capable of doing it. One of them works for me and has loyalty to me and owes his job to me, and another one can, if she gets upset with me, she can say, "Shh, I'm going the other way on this, Buster. You were dumb enough to give it to me, now I'm gonna roll another way." And from a work assignment and from a delegating standpoint, and frankly, I know I hurt her feelings. I know I did, and it ruined both of our weekends that weekend, but when she understood why I did it, it made all the sense in the world. But that's a big deal. So when the IT contract gets goofed up and there's a $240,000 mix-up, who are you guys gonna yell at? Because it's Crawford, right? Well, I'm gonna say, I gave it to an employee that doesn't work for me. What's Terry Lister gonna tell me? What were you thinking? Why didn't you give it to an employee that works for you, right? That makes all the sense in the world. So I really had to go through that whole scenario, and before you know it, it's like, I just had to eliminate the one option because she has no loyalty to me on paper, I guess. Amy's a great employee and a good friend and works her tail off, but
Yeah, I know. But Tom, is there, can we do a resolution or
No.
something that would give?
can't supersede the charter.
Nope.
No, the charter's going to control.
Charter is-
If you want to change the charter, you can change the charter. It requires an ordinance and a ballot and a referendum.
Yep.
And you're pressing up against the deadline right now for a March election. There are lots of cities that are rushing to get them done because of the supervisor elections requiring the ballot language to, I think, by January 3rd. So you may not even be able to do that.
Are we gonna have an election no matter what? If there are two, We have 2 spots open. If they're run unopposed, we won't have an election.
You will not have an election.
It's nothing to spend money on. It really isn't. It's just, I just wanted you, for lack of a better anything else, you just understand that it does create an issue every once in a while. Tom, can I ask you a question? And I don't want to put you on the spot. I approved a position that works for Amy in the budget, sees in the back of the room, works with Amy but assists in other areas. Does that position report, or I take that back, who can hire, or who can fire that position?
Only you. You
Only-
control all city employees within the city,
Okay,
except for
Except for
Amy.
Amy and you.
So everybody that works under Amy works under you. You're in control of those people. Absolutely.
That's weird too. So now there's a girl, right, that works for Amy. Amy sets her work schedule, sets her goals, sets her everything, but she in turn, I guess, basically reports to me. Now sees another one. She's great, works her tail off. She's here all the time, very smart gal, and I don't know. You can see the dilemma that causes. So I think we probably beat this one to death. But in the meantime, maybe it's just something to keep on the back burner. You as a commission may want to decide whether or not it's time to form some charter review committee and take a look at that. That sounds very political, and frankly, we have enough things going on right now that sounds really horrible, to be honest with you.
That's a job.
We did that in '08.
Well, then let's leave it there.
Tom, you sure you don't want us to hire you to take care of that Constitution?
That's not something that I want to get involved
That was the
in.
most insincere laugh I've ever heard.
Come on.
You smart enough to do that. How much money is it gonna take? We'll get out and start collecting some money, and we'll go to all the cities, as I'm telling you.
Well, how much is
Nobody
Morgan
likes
Not a
spent on
city
medical
around
marijuana?
that likes it, but they don't do nothing. What'd you say, Tom?
I said, how much money has Morgan spent on medical marijuana? And that's not a constitutional change.
Chunk.
Over $4 million.
I think it's more than that,
Is
but
it over more than that now?
Yeah.
That was the last count I saw.
as for your charter review, it should be done. Most cities do it every 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Ours has been done for a while.
And so it's not a big deal to appoint 5 people or 7 people or whatever your charter provides for that position and review them. Lots of cities have done. I just completed one in Bel Air Bluffs, and we just completed one in Oldsmar, and so it's not a big deal.
Good.
The charter's 10 pages long, so it's not a big deal if you ever want to do that, but.
Well, I still want to hire you to do the Constitution because I think you're smart enough to do it. It just takes money, and we can find it. Just charge a big charge.
I gotta
'Cause
find
these
time.
cities, I'm telling you, Terry,
We'll pay them in bitcoins.
There you go. I like your thinking.
but anyway, I'm telling you, that's a compliment to you, young man.
It is,
But I believe.
and it should be
do
changed.
that.
I appreciate
And
all
I've,
it takes
I've said
is
it on
money.
this dais before.
And you know what? It depends on how bad these cities wants to get the job done. Everybody moans about it, and the only way you can ever get anything done is to step to the plate and start working on it.
But the way it's gonna come across, though, just to be completely truthful and honest with you, it's
That
gonna
you
come
wanna go
across
backdoor public.
that you want to do things out of the public's eye, you wanna
Behind
do
closed
things in a back room, you're gonna make decisions that the public don't have anything to know about, just like you did it in the past, I don't mean you personally. But that's why the Sunshine Law was adopted, was because people were doing things with public money that the public at large didn't agree with.
You know where they was doing it? Up in Tallahassee, where they're still doing it.
Oh, they were
exactly.
doing it all over the place,
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah,
I-
but that's the biggest
yeah.
offender right up there.
Yeah. So that's the reason, and it's it's gonna be hard for a politician, just like it's hard for you to deal with term limits and your salaries and.
What's
You-
salary?
Yeah, well, most commissioners or council members don't want to vote on a salary increase because they're afraid what the public is gonna think, and you don't want to increase taxes because you're afraid what the public's gonna think.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just another one of those issues, that the public is gonna think that you wanna do things behind closed doors.
See the intelligence.
It's gonna be hard, be hard to convince a whole lot of cities to get on the bandwagon.
Guess I'm used to being somewhere where they like. Must be my problem. But you know how I hate it. I just think it's the worst. And
Very-
they've scared the people, they've scared the commissioners, the people in the city so bad. But it's just nonsense. Like, if your door is wide open and anybody wants to come in, you're in the sunshine. If you're outside in a restaurant and you're all sitting together talking, you're in the sunshine.
I don't think that's what they mean.
Well, that is what they mean. It's exactly what they mean. But we
It's
used
the
to have a
word
city
sunshine.
attorney, Hugh Smith, when they first passed the sunshine law. He gave us a lot of lessons on just what the sunshine law was. He used to tell us, if you're back there in that room, we used to meet for the workshop like the other day, and that door is open, anybody can walk in, sit down, and listen to anything. You're always in the sunshine. That's what he said. That was Hugh Smith, if you know him.
I didn't know him, but there's other requirements
They
too.
get you to advertise.
The meeting has
That's
to-
the deal.
Yeah.
72
Well,
hours.
they got so many requirements now, honey, but I'm just saying, in the beginning, you remember in the beginning, it wasn't near as tough as it
That was before my time.
There you go.
What did he say?
There you
That
go.
was before my time.
Oh, yeah, you was just a young fellow then. I was just a young lady too, but I still like the sunshine law. If I've gotten older, I hate it worse. But I apologize, and thank you for the nice statements you gave me, because that's why I said a young man like you could probably change the Constitution.
No, I appreciate that.
You just keep me straight, Tom, because it's tough for me, boy. It's tough on that. I just get so upset over that sunshine law, and I apologize.
Okay, to get back on track, you two working together, that's fantastic. I know you work well together, but I've had bad city managers in the past, and that's the problem. That's the big deal, and I wouldn't mind if you worked under Jane, absolutely, that'd be perfect. But I wouldn't let you work under some of my city managers I've had in the past. It's just it's terrible how there's good management and there's bad management. And I think that the three separated is a little bit of shield to having all bad, and that's just where I'm at. And I know you guys work well together. And as far as the elections in March, I think we discussed several years ago to change them over to November so that they would work with the other elections and it wouldn't cost the city anything to do the elections. They're paid for by Pinellas County, the ones in November. So,
Never changed.
we can work on going towards that if we're concerned about how much our elections are costing, which, $5,000, 5 or 6,
$8,000.
$8,000.
Well, if there's, not to beleaguer this point, but if there's any benefit that came from this conversation, at least you're aware of it now, and now I feel a little bit better about saying, okay, Amy, I've got a 6-figure problem, I'm giving it to you, because the board understands that we work well together, and if you screw this up, I'm telling them all about it. And that at least makes the delegating a little bit easier, as long as you understand the working relationship there. And again, that last one was unfortunate, but now I've got a little, at least, an easier time, as long as you understand what I'm up
Yeah,
against.
both of you be relaxed, as long as you work together, good. Relax. Yeah, do.
We're good.
Okay. Next.
Okay, that's it. Okay, the next one is the decision on changing the resolution to make agenda-setting meetings at 5:45.
Anybody have a problem with that?
I vote for
No.
that.
That's fine.
We start that meeting at 5:30, we're done at 5:35, and then we sit and stare at each other for 25 minutes. I think there hasn't been an agenda-setting meeting that we've had that lasted longer than 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, that's done. Next one, this is Elaine's or Commissioner Poe's
Does anybody,
discussion.
before we get, this one's going to be a lengthy one, does anybody need a bathroom break? This is the first time we've gone 2 hours in a workshop probably in over a year. Anybody need a break? Otherwise, we can keep going, although I'm going to excuse myself and go to the bathroom.
Okay, do you want us to wait?
No, you guys go ahead. I'm just going to make a
Pass
quick.
your coffee
Okay.
cream down here.
Oh, sure, you want coffee cream. You want to take 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's take 5
Okay,
minutes.
All
we'll
right, there
take
you go.
5 minutes.
Let's take 5.
Okay. I'll adjourn this meeting at 3. our workshop at 5 minutes after 4. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be discussion of Amendment 2 for the medical marijuana.
Who wants to start? Me?
Somebody's
Why not?
name.
It's got your name right there, Elaine. Go ahead. Start going.
Okay. First off, Tom, I have a bone to pick with you.
Uh-oh.
You sent us a House bill and a Senate bill, and I was stupid enough to read them both. And they're dealing with the recreational marijuana, not medical. And I'm going, I don't get this. Why am I reading this? But I'm not bright enough to stop either, so I didn't know there might have been something hidden somewhere on page 82.
Make sure I slip something in there.
Yeah. I just had
Yeah.
to make sure. Okay, here's the deal, guys. We don't know if this is gonna pass or not. The polls change every day. We won't know until the end of the day whether it does or not. However, Tom was nice enough to send us a bunch of ordinances from different cities that have already passed it just to be prepared. Because you have no idea, once it passes, should it pass, what Tallahassee is going to slip into it that's gonna preempt our community from doing something. So I don't wanna take any chances. If you look at the ones with the highlights on them, these are the bills that Tom sent, and I actually sat down and broke them out to certain parts on the zoning that they were going to restrict in. Mount Dora, I think, is probably the best one of all. The other thing I like, Tom, and I can't see any reason why we can't do it, is most everybody's putting 1,000 feet from a school, a church, or a park, or a municipal center. But 2 of these have 2,500 feet. When we do our ordinance, I would also like to have 2,500 feet, because then I think we'll be covered just about anywhere in the city that we can have one.
Well, we should find out what that number is and hit that number, whatever it is. Can we go to 3,500 if we have to?
I don't know. I was gonna ask Tom that.
Well, let's just start off with a little bit more background. If it passes, there's nothing currently that says that the cities can't regulate any portion of this. So that's a
Currently.
good point. But there is, according to the Florida League of Cities memorandum, there is this push to add regulations to the agency that's going to handle adopting regulations. And they've got that listed as the Florida Department of Health. So they'll create some type of regulations. I liken this similar to adult use ordinances, where nobody really wants it, but you have to provide some location for it, at least in my mind. I think if you outright prohibit it in the city, you're subject to challenge, and you ultimately will probably be overturned. So the idea is to find a location in your city that it would work and provide for it to be in that particular location. And my suggestion is you either do it in the format of a special exception or conditional use, where it is not outright permitted, but if it was a special exception, it would go before the special magistrate for consideration, and we could create a number of factors, similar to the factors that are listed in some of those ordinances that I've provided to you. And by the way, the Florida League of Cities was the organization that gathered these particular ordinances. So when it was sent through what we call our listserv, government lawyers are all connected into a little program where we can ask other city attorneys or county attorneys questions, and it's basically a brain trust is what it is. Everybody can ask questions and get answers, and I'm sure in every, like the city manager probably has such a thing, and the finance director has such a group of people as well. But anyhow, this was provided through the Florida League of Cities as well. So as for the exact number of feet between a house of worship and schools and so forth, I would not want to adopt it so that it basically prohibits any type of dispensary within the city. Some cities are putting it into heavy industrial locations, which I don't believe you have any in the city.
That's where we'll allow it.
And some cities are doing it in highway commercial And that's usually where you find adult use type stores and that type of thing. But I think it's really going to involve a review by Lynn and her department as to figure out exactly where, give us a map as to where all the schools are, all the churches are, everything else that you want to keep this thing away from, and what their distances are, and what zoning categories would be appropriate for this type of thing, and come back to you with some recommendations as to where we think that it should be located and for further direction from you. And then we would prepare an ordinance that would set forth what zoning district it should be allowed in and how it should be allowed in there. It's not going to be, in my mind, a permitted use. Like I said, it would be a special exception or a conditional use. So someone else, it wouldn't be an automatic. They wouldn't come here and say, okay, well, I'm going to plunk mine right here because it's in that zoning district. Well, no, you're not going to plunk it right there. You're going to come through a further review process where you're either going to go before the commission as a whole to give you permission, or you're going to bring it before the special magistrate and meet those technical requirements to see if it would pass or not. And so those are kind of my suggestions, and I'm glad that Commissioner Poe has, jumped right on this. We've been talking about it for about a month and a half, 2 months, at the Florida Municipal Attorneys Association meetings, and out of whatever 400 cities in the state of Florida. I know I've got that number wrong, but it's somewhere around there.
410.
I'm sorry?
410.
410? That was close. That, you've got 6 or 7 that have adopted ordinances at this point. So you're at the beginning or the top of the game here if you get involved. I submitted this stuff to Shane and all the other city managers of the cities that we represent, making sure that we're on the front end of the game as well on the other cities. So,
But I don't feel like we're at the front of the game.
well, you are in front of the game. That's what I'm saying. Out of 410 cities, there's whatever 7 here that have done it.
There's more out there.
I know there's a lot of them in the process of doing it, but they have not been adopted that I'm aware of. So, but it isn't like we're the first city. So,
I just don't like being last.
yeah, well, we won't be last, of course, because we're talking about it now, and you're hopefully going to give us some direction on as to what you want us to do today. But that would be my suggestion is for Lynn and I to sit down, draw out a map where everything is located, give you some suggestions as to where we think it would be, give you some suggestions on the type of ordinance that it should be, and what type of technical restrictions should be placed on it, just besides 1,000 feet or 1,500 or 2,500 feet away from a church or school.
Basically, that's about all they're quoting right now as some of the problems, keeping them away from certain areas, what everybody's using.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is, how fast can we do one?
Well, you just need 2 public hearings.
I know, but we can't do it before it passes or doesn't pass.
Sure we can. We can do it before, and then we can just say that if it doesn't pass, then the ordinance is not effective. So when your last section of your ordinance, it becomes effective on the passage of amendment number 2. And if
Okay.
it doesn't pass, then the ordinance has no effect. It's similar to the ordinances that we draft for charter changes. Those say that you're passing this ordinance, however, it's not going to be effective until approved by the voters in a referendum. So if it's not approved, it never becomes effective.
Correct.
So that's how we can do it. And it's just a matter of timing then, on the city manager's direction or calendar, we could, address it by having those 2 public hearings before the end of the year, if you wanted to do that.
I want to do whatever we have to do, just to make sure. We fought awful hard to get the drugs out of Madeira Beach, and I don't care what they say, it may be for medical, but I see too much of it going on where they head down, pick their pills up, and the next thing you know, they're out on the streets selling them.
Well, what I foresee is it's going to take another work session for Lynn and I to come back to you and say, here's the city, here's our suggestions, here are the technical requirements, do we have the authority to prepare that ordinance? And then once we have that, it'll be a couple of days, and we can have the ordinance prepared. And then at the next regular meeting, you could have the first reading.
You're talking about in November?
I'm hoping. But if you don't have a work session, in November, then it may be, mid-January before the second reading.
Then we'll just have to have a special work session in November.
Call it right now.
Yeah. Because our Thanksgiving vacation.
That's right, too. Or could we hold it before BOC?
Yeah, that,
It
Well,
would,
you could
it
have
would
it pretty much
require Lynn,
drafted.
it would require Lynn and I to find out where it would be the best location and give you suggestions so that you can tell us, no, Tom, we don't want it here, and we don't want it there.
okay?
So, I can't read that without my glasses. Planning Commission as LPA. What? I'm sorry? Oh, okay, what Lynn is just reminding me is that we need to, if we're gonna change the code, that it has to go before the Planning Commission as your LPA. So it creates one more public hearing. So,
And we're under kind of a tight watch.
yeah.
Okay.
So why don't we do it in such a way that Lynn and I will get together, and then we'll get with the city manager, and then we'll try to figure out some timing as to what would work. And then put it back to the city manager's office to try to figure out when timing-wise, how the meetings we need to hit.
Okay.
They're good to go.
Yeah, it's just one item on the workshop is cake.
Okay. We will do that.
Okay, we'll go on to the next item, which is the discussion of new fitness center operations.
Yeah, I just wanted to broach this topic with you, and we can skin this cat a number of different ways, Remember, the whole idea here was we were going to build a fitness center because every fire department has a fitness center. Well, through the budgetary process, that fitness center was cut down in size relatively significantly because we had to make the budget. So there's a couple of things. You could just say, well, it's just for the fire department. City employees can use it in their off time if they want to stay after work and run on the treadmill or do whatever. You could open it up to the citizens of Madera Beach. You could open it up to the citizens and people that work in Madera Beach. There's a number of different ways. But if you do that, are you going to charge them? What would that cost be? If you open it up too much, you put a lot of wear and tear on a lot of the equipment. So now you're in the business of literally running a fitness center and constantly circulating the equipment out because it gets beaten and, that type of thing. There's a liability standpoint. I think that there's an issue there. Also, the equipment's being bought with a fire department grant, so there's some issue there. So I don't know if I'm prepared to make a recommendation, but I guess what I'd ask you is this. I'm wondering, since we're really diving into this whole, this pool of things that we've never really done before on such a grand scape, that this isn't one of those issues that maybe we should get it up and running and discuss 6 months after we've moved in, and until then, leave it as the fire department fitness center, and if employees want to use it, city employees want to use it before work or after work or on their lunch hour or something, they'd be allowed to, and then evaluate that, because I think if we go into one of those scenarios, we'll be running a fitness center, and we need to be ready to deal with the fact that we'll have to replace treadmills every year and a half and weights and that type of thing. Or if you want us to, and we certainly can, we can have this thing ready to go and open it up to the public when we move on in.
I think it'll create a big headache. What I think. There's plenty of places that they have these fitness.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner, because I have been contacted. A manager from LA Fitness called. There's another club down on the beach. And it's like, geez, are you going to open that up to the public and compete with me? And that's not what we're here for. But when we were talking about it, it was like, well, geez, Madera Beach doesn't have a fitness center. If we're going to build one, let's build a grandiose one. Well, that grandiose one got scaled down quite a bit to meet that budget. Remember, our budget was in the 14s and 15s before we scaled it down to where it is now.
Yeah.
So Most, fitness centers like that, in fact, a guy talked to us at Rotary that time, and I think he said that they had $850,000 worth of just weight equipment at an LA Fitness. Ours is gonna have 20,000, so, you can't open it up to the public and then think that it's gonna be okay to have 40 people in there. The capacity is probably gonna be closer to 10 to 12, so, it's completely at your direction, but what I don't want, and I want to be very open, is some of our conversation, at least in the get-go, was, hey, we're going to have a public fitness center in Madeira Beach, but it certainly got scaled down, and now the equipment's being bought with a specific fire department grant.
How about, down the boulevard here? I think it's Reading. Where is the Wells Fargo Bank? Is that in Indians, Georgia? That's in Reddington, Georgia.
Right.
They have that outdoor, icicles and things.
Yeah, they have, our firefighters actually work out there every once in a while.
I was just wondering if they have something like that on,
That's a great idea.
in Earthville. What
Dave
happened?
wanted to do that at a park, and I Commissioner, you're not, well, we're being brutally honest today, right? People that work out aren't gonna use that stuff, it's, if somebody wants to get on there and do a little bit here and there, they'll do that, but
That's
people
for
that
the
wanna.
sissies. That's not.
Not necessarily for the sissies, but it's just not,
I
if
mean,
you're gonna
it's-
go work out, you want specific equipment and
Like
that
a
are
real
gonna work
thing,
out a
yeah.
specific body part, and so,
That's what we buy Tyrone too, not right before you get to the house. Yeah, there's never anyone in there.
yeah.
I see people all the time in that one in Reddington.
Are you being
Reddington
facetious?
stores.
I've seen an older gentleman or two on there. I think they look more like lawn ornaments than anything else, but
Yeah,
that's all right.
they really do. They just took my eye like.
I use
Getting deep in here.
It is, isn't it?
What I think about that, Dave, that's where I'd go down there. To pop up. Yeah, butterflies could tickle you on the nose and mosquitoes could bite you. It'd be wonderful.
At 100 degrees?
Yeah.
I guess, if the commission wants to give me this direction, what I recommend is, let's get into the facility, just as you all said, let's get the city center finished. Let's get the firefighters working out in their club. If we want to let the city employees use it up until then. And then once we're in and the city center's done, in 2 or 3 months, we can sit down and say, now I know what it looks like. Now I know how many people it can hold. Now I know how we'll control, how many people will be in and out of there, and then make a decision. Because right now, we're just looking at it on paper, and it's not making a whole lot of sense to me. So I think maybe if we're not saying no to anything, we just want it to get done so we can make an educated decision. I think that that's not unfair.
Well, TP and I go over to the Seminole gym, $120 a year. We can use it 6 days a week.
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah, well, we was gonna have it here after we surveyed the situation.
Yeah.
Certainly have to have a charge, anyway.
yeah, but
Well,
I'm
I'll
just
tell
saying,
you,
there's plenty of places to go.
We'd have to have a charge, and we're not gonna be able to provide what some, like LA Fitness or wherever you go, Elaine, is going to be able to provide. And if, like I said, if we get a host of 50 members that are actually gonna use it, you'll have to wait in line to use equipment, and that's not gonna jive, so. Especially if, the whole idea is these firefighters need to be able to go in there, work out, and get back to doing what they do, so. If you don't mind, it's just one thing that I kinda like to put on the back burner as we're trying to invent all these other new things that we're doing. That's really like the last one I wanna tackle. Let's just see what it looks like when we're done and make the decision then.
Well, we wouldn't want our firefighters standing in line waiting for equipment either.
Right, well, either that, or we'd have to reserve a time where no one from the public can use it except for the fire department or something like that. And now all of a sudden you're starting to shy away from the idea that we got this grant for $24,000 for the firefighters to use, and, we can't get a firefighter on the treadmill because, somebody's on it. So if that's okay, as long as it makes the minutes like that,
I think you have to do that.
we'll revisit that 60 or 90 days after the city center's complete.
Okay, the next item will be the discussion on an ordinance 2014-15 pertaining to planning commission and special magistrate, variances and special exceptions, notification, the planning commission meeting dates, and definition for abutting, adjoining, and contiguous?
Contiguous.
Contiguous. Okay,
Good
then.
afternoon. The The Planning Commission has been looking at several issues. Some of them, in this case, are housekeeping. Two things that concerned them was, they were looking to be flexible with their meeting schedules. They routinely meet on the second Monday of the month, but they also, their other meeting time that's stated in the code is the fourth Monday of the month. And there were a couple of issues with that. One, if they decided on Monday, the first Monday of the month, the second Monday for their first meeting, if they wanted to have a meeting on the fourth Monday, notification requirement is a 15-day posted notice. It's only 14 days between those meetings. So that was one of the problems. So they started looking at these problematic things. They were recommending that they drop out of the code the fourth Monday of the month, and adding language that, in addition, the Planning Commission, by request of the chairman or the city staff, may schedule special meetings or workshops as needed, provided a quorum has indicated that they can attend such a meeting. Okay, and then going on into the notification, which you'll find on the third page of the ordinance, they were recommending a 10-day notification requirement. I checked with other cities in the area. Typical is 7 to 10 days on your notifications. These are either mailed out notifications or the postings that we do to let people know about the particular meetings. And I also added, besides the 10-day, or to meet the Florida statutory requirements, whichever is greater, because sometimes when you have certain land use or zoning cases, if they are publicly initiated, then there's a longer time period for the notification. Also, for other meetings and workshops not involving an application, Planning Commission was asking that they be able to have a minimum 3 days notice being given. So if they had their meeting on the second Monday of the month and they wanted to continue it or have another meeting or a workshop to talk about some other issues, and maybe they could meet that Thursday or the following Monday or Tuesday without having the long notice requirement. So they were looking for some flexibility in their scheduling, especially if they were going to have a second meeting of that month. In addition to that, on notifications for the special magistrate, they suggested a similar 10-day notification period. In other words, those notices would be mailed out 10 days ahead. They felt that that was sufficient time for the public to be noticed that there was going to be a hearing. And also, sometimes they've heard that the longer 15-day period, people tend to forget about the notice that they received because it was so long in advance. The final thing in this particular ordinance deals with definitional changes. This comes out of the density averaging tool that we have put into the ordinance that's coming to you in about 2 weeks for the second reading, dealing with the town center and everything else. And we don't have a definition in the books for abutting, adjoining, or contiguous. And these terminologies are used interchangeably. So I worked the definition and have gone over this with David Healy and Bob Metz, who is the Planning Commission's city attorney. And the abutting means to physically touch or border upon, to share a common property line, or is directly across the street, access easement, alley, or other right-of-way, except those properties separated by an arterial street from the subject property. Then adjoining and contiguous would mean the same as abutting. An arterial street would be like Gulf Boulevard or 150th Avenue. In density averaging, the part about density averaging is it is described as utilizing property under a unified development agreement or site plan where it could be separated by an alley or a minor street, as long as it's under this unified development plan or site plan and ownership or other controlling things. But like I said, we didn't have a definition for that, so that's why it was important, we felt, to have a definition of abutting, so that we knew what we were talking about. But then we didn't want any conflicts in the code between adjoining, contiguous, or abutting, because sometimes they're just used interchangeably, and we just wanted to be on the same page with that definition. Got any questions about this? I'd be glad to answer it.
So all the streets we have are small except for Gulf
Except
Boulevard
for
and 150th.
Gulf
That's the
Boulevard
ones.
and
The two.
150th, and we did not,
Yes.
the Planning Commission nor staff felt that it was appropriate to have a development that went across such a big street. And then
Now-
that would also be contrary to the Pinellas Countywide rules.
Okay, so on the smaller streets, if you call it continuous, how far down the street can it be? Are we talking half a block? Are we talking line of
Has-
sight? What are we talking?
Has to be contiguous.
Yeah,
so-
but it's already separated by the street, so,
If you,
yeah, that's.
this
a
is what
fuzzy
is
line.
done, say, for example, with annexations. If you take the street out of the equation,
Right,
do those properties touch?
I got you. Okay, that's good.
If they're down the street
Right.
and separated by a lot, they're not contiguous.
Okay.
Those were the Planning Commission's recommendations. They were unanimous.
So I'm good with it going from 15 to 10 days. That's a pretty good. My only thought was if you wanted to continue a meeting in 72 hours, I don't understand that for
Well,
sure.
not necessarily continue a meeting, but say they talked about an idea that they wanted to discuss.
Right. So there's
And maybe
only
if-
going to be a 72-hour notice for that specific continuation. It's got to be
They could have a
continued from that meeting. It can't be new business.
It could be new business
No,
if they
no.
wanted to.
And that's basically throwing the 10-day out the window as opposed to the 3-day. I don't understand that.
If it's a workshop, where it's not a noticed, it's not something that's an ordinance that's being required to be noticed. Let's say they're talking about parking, they're talking about short-term rentals, or, whatever it is that they wanted to talk about. But maybe they had some other issues that they wanted to talk about, either with that particular subject or another subject in a workshop type of setting. It's not their regular meeting.
Oh, okay, all right.
The regular meeting
That explains it.
is the second Monday of the month.
Okay. I understand the 72 hours there. I don't have a
Good
problem with
idea.
those recommendations.
Good idea.
And we're recommending that this come back to you on the 12th for first reading.
That's fine.
Okay.
Next one, valet parking.
Okay,
Gonna have valet
ready for the
parking in
next one?
Yes, this other ordinance, 2014-16, pertains to valet parking and motorcycle scooter parking. The Planning Commission has been looking at parking for some time. It started with shared parking. There still is no agreement on how to deal with shared parking at this time. But two other items that they wanted to put into the parking regulations dealt with valet parking, and valet parking, which they feel is not a specific use as much as it's a service. And they felt that it should be regulated and approved by the city manager or his designee. So this ordinance describes that it's a service, describes what kind of approval it needs, which is an administrative approval, does subject it to site plan review and approval, can allow the city manager or his designee to put certain conditions or restrictions in place. It also does allow for a notification procedure, properly noticed, 10 days maybe instead of 15 days, and also an appeal process if the applicant is unhappy with the decision of the city manager or designee. The appeal would be like other appeals of that type to the special magistrate. That would be an appeal of an administrative decision. The second section of the ordinance deals with motorcycle scooter parking. That is whereby the proprietor would be able to substitute up to 5% of their required parking spaces for non-residential uses. And a motorcycle parking space would be, size of a regular car parking space would be utilized for 2 motorcycles. So they could get some credit for allocating parking for motorcycles or scooters, and that would give them some flexibility in their parking requirements. So if you have a business that would expect more trade, maybe came by motorcycle or scooters, just as we have some bicycle parking credits, this would give them the opportunity to park motorcycles and scooters with reduced spaces. I know we've all seen parking spaces that are occupied by 1 motorcycle. So they would have to sign it, they would have to put signs up, and the little spaces would have to be dimensioned out, and it would be part of their site plan. Again, this is something that would have to be approved by the city manager or designee and put on a site plan that would be included in the property record. So the Planning Commission thought that this was a good idea. They unanimously approved these recommendations dealing with valet parking and motorcycle scooter parking, and staff is recommending that you forward this on to first reading for November 12th. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
I don't understand, why do
Valet
we want to
parking.
have a control on valet parking?
Yeah, that's an issue. Are we trying to regulate it? We're trying to regulate valet parking. So if somebody wants to have a party and they want to park into a public space, any other cars, we want the city manager to know about that? Is that the intent? I don't understand why we're trying to regulate parking.
Okay, if you have a business,
Right.
say a restaurant, that wants to go ahead and have on a regular basis a valet service.
But the spots that they're going to go to, are they designated spots? Is that what we're
Yes,
trying-
there would be
they're definitely
designated
designated spots, that they're just,
Right.
so it's off-site parking.
But it could allow for stacking of parking. You maybe have a vacant lot that you don't necessarily have to park in regular curbed spaces where they would be lined up. Also, especially if you've got a business off Gulf Boulevard, you can, if people are using valet parking, then sometimes there are issues. A good example of that was down south at Caddy's in Treasure Island, where on the weekends, traffic would be backed up down Gulf Boulevard a couple blocks, people wanting to turn in to go to Sunset Beach, maybe to park at Caddy's or maybe to go to their house on Sunset Beach. And there was only that one-way road into Sunset Beach. And so, the city needed to step in and begin controlling valet parking to some degree so that it didn't cause traffic problems and other types of problems. It didn't, it was well regulated. In downtown St. Petersburg, they have areas that are designated as valet parking and where they park their cars, and that all gets approved so that you make sure as a city that these valet parking areas are properly designed so that they don't affect traffic and so that they don't become a problem.
First of all, we don't have any place in Deer Beach to worry about to do that. The best place I can think of where anybody might do valet parking, and if we're going to talk about a restaurant, for instance, where the new restaurant was
At 140th.
Boulevard,
Yeah.
they would need extra parking.
Right.
So they could contract with the Church by the Sea to do their parking there, and how they direct the people there, I don't know, I think that would be their affair. They would valet park, they would let the people get out of their car, they would take the car and go down to the Church by the Sea and park it. They'd have a ticket or something to give to the customer, and then when they come out, they would get the guy their ticket, and he'd go get the car. I don't know that we need any more rules for parking in Deer Beach, especially valet parking. There's nobody else that valet parks that I know of. You know of any valet parking?
No.
What about Lisa? It's pretty packed in.
Yeah, but she's got a parking lot on the side there.
Lisa's?
Lisa's,
Yeah, she actually does that parking lot the other side of Lou's Tattoos.
Okay.
Yeah.
She has a
So she already has that written agreement. So there's no valet parking.
I just noticed.
I know that the Middle Grounds that does valet parking down
Yeah,
there in
they do.
Treasure Island, you can see that, just
Yeah,
a
they do
service
it,
that they do. But I just don't see why we need to have our city manager sign off on valet parking. That's just another layer of bureaucracy that if somebody wants to have a party, they gotta go through City Hall. I don't think it's necessary, personally.
I don't
So-
think we have a big enough need at this stage of the game in this county to have it.
And I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to avoid caddies, and, yeah, I do understand that.
The topic came up when the restaurant was being talked about.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And they were asked to look at valet parking. They were asked to look at parking issues, including valet parking, because a discussion was going on about whether or not valet parking would be part of it. And we didn't have any rules about valet parking and how that can count as some of your required parking or what have you, so, and where you would put that parking. So this is where this came from.
And I can see that if it, comes to flourishing at 140th for a restaurant on the Gulf, that they could obviously need a valet park. But I think they've already put those pieces in place for the dirt that they want to use for parking. I don't think valet then comes under, I don't know, that jurisdiction.
That would be a courtesy on their part to the customer.
Exactly, yeah.
We'll take your car to our valet.
It'd be safer, obviously, to let them out, not to make them have to cross the road. But a lot of people like me, when I go to a hotel, I don't want a valet park. I don't want to pay the $25. I'll self-park. So, they're going to self-park. So, again, I just think it's over-regulation.
I think, Lynn, isn't one of the issues, though, and I'm coming up with a bad example, but let's pretend the South Beach parking lot, the condo that's right there was a hotel, and they were going to offer valet, and they would contact the city manager and say, can we valet in your spots for a fee versus, or if I know that there's an event in town and they contact me and I say, listen, you can't park there because we're having a Dave Marsicano party on the beach on Saturday, right? So they would have to, what this is just saying is that they would have to work with the city in order to utilize those said parking lots?
Yes.
I think it's more of a coordination type effort versus a regulation type effort, just because of the limited amount of parking that we've got. We've got lots that people don't even know exist that we could say, hey, yeah, go ahead and valet down there on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock versus, wait a minute, you can't valet your cars at Archibald on a Saturday afternoon.
You need a 10-day notification on this before he even knows that it's going to happen. So they're well in advance, know what's going to go on.
Right.
Right.
But, it's, I see that, I see dollar signs. I mean, I think that there's a way that you could work with these companies to say, yeah, go ahead and park there, but if you're gonna give us $1 a car an hour or whatever it may be.
They're going to pay for parking anyway if they're there, right?
Well, if they're valeting it, they're not gonna pay the valet and pay the hourly rate, so then we'd have to work with the valet company.
But what if they was parking not on city property? What if they were parking on private property, church parking? They would wheel and deal with the church. Then would they have to have a permit because they're doing valet parking through you, just give permission?
I think so.
Yeah, that's the
Conversely-
layer I think it's too much.
I mean, I don't think we right at this time in our lifetime, Deer Beach, we don't need that particular rule. We don't have that
Well,
big a need.
They're being proactive as opposed to reactive, and I understand that. That's a good deal, but it's still just more government red tape. And, the citizens want to have a party and valet, they should be able to do it without coming to City Hall and saying, we want a valet. As long as they're legally parked somewhere. And if they're legally parked in my parking lot, our parking lot, they have to pay the parking fees, whether it's a valet company that's paying them or the, whoever.
Tom can comment on this too, but the other thing that I saw in this ordinance is that, let's use the restaurant for an example, and they say, well, geez, Jane, we can't make our parking requirement, but we're going to valet. And we're going to valet at the Church by the Sea, and we're going to valet at the supermarket across the street, and we're going to valet at Dave Marsicano's parking lot 4 blocks down.
Then we go with the adjoining, abutting, and continuous. That's got to be closer. You can't just say, I'm going to park at Publix, and I can open a 500-table restaurant. Really? Come on.
Yeah, my point is, on a Friday night, I may want to say that it's not adjoining, abutting, or contiguous, but 2 blocks down, there's a parking lot that no one ever parks in, and you can make $1 off. And we have plenty of those in town.
This was crafted in a manner similar to our shared parking agreement requirements that are in the code. And so this is basically an expansion or an addendum to that. Whatever your pleasure.
You don't have to make a decision on this tonight. I'd spend some time on this, think this one through. You're not going to make a formal decision tonight, and this one doesn't need to be put on the next Board of Commissioners agenda. We can workshop this one again, but I think you need to think through. There's several scenarios, and you're getting some relatively large developments that if you haven't seen, they're coming. You may want to just take your time with this one and think this one all the way through before and maybe there's a modification that needs to be made here that makes sense for everybody.
I've seen it too, where piece of vacant land in the zoning district next to the residential zoning district, and they start valet parking in that until 2 in the morning. The residents don't like that. And if you're not looking at what they're proposing to do, and they're just, starting to use that sort of thing, then is there even a code violation, for example? Then how do you rein it back in? If you don't have any regulations, then we're writing regulations.
Well, we have a
back and
regulation,
forward.
you can't valet park in a residential neighborhood, can you?
It didn't say parking in a residential neighborhood, but in a district that was abutting a residential area. And we do have a lot of that. We have shallow zoning districts, where the C3 is right up against the R2, for example.
I understand. All right. Well, let me look at it a little closer. Again, I don't have to make a decision right now.
We'll have to think it over. We'll have to think it over.
But I like the scooters. They should definitely get the 2 for 1 or whatever that is. Yeah. I mean, the bikes have been there for a long time.
Makes sense, and
Yeah.
and then they can double up
Sure.
in the car-sized parking spaces.
That's great, because you'll go sailing along, oh, there's a parking place, you look in, there's a motor scooter in it.
All the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Is there any further discussion on anything?
What'd you say?
Any further discussion on?
Want to talk about anything else? Because we're in the sunshine right now.
I know, I talked to
We
him.
can talk.
I talked
As soon as
to
that gavel hits, you can't say another word.
I'm done talking to him.
All right, you're done? Really?
You've had it, huh?
I've done a lot of talking today.
Long meeting today. I'm really, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close our workshop, and the time is now 4:47.